at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our Daily Gun Show. Come to you live every weeknight at midnight Eastern, and we talk about guns for an hour. So this is episode number 790. Is that right? We've been doing the show for a while, and we go live every weeknight. One of the goals is to talk about gun shops. They're important, and we value them, so we try to focus on a gun shop every night. Since we go live each weeknight, each night has a different focus. And on Fridays, we typically look at the industry or tech. So that's what we'll be looking at today. And I guess this will apply, but I also named the show Saddest Boy Ever because I am depressed. I have not had such a defeating situation happen in a long, long time as far as firearms. I've been around guns since my whole life. I've never not been around firearms. There's been years where I could care less about them and stuff, but been fairly aware and involved with firearms my whole life, and because of that, I'm old. I've been able to pull triggers on pretty much everything I've ever desired to pull a trigger on, except for maybe a couple of guns out there. And there's this one gun that I've assumed I would never be able to shoot, and fairly recently, since last November, became aware of one, and then expressed to the owners of it that it's one of my dream guns. And I was told, yeah, let's find out how we can make it where you can pull the trigger on that thing and fiddle with it. I mean, they wanted to fiddle with it. And I found out today that that's not going to happen. So I don't remember the last time I've been so depressed and frustrated by something. And I mean, it's my own fault, I guess, for not pestering them. I didn't realize I needed to pester them. I didn't know there was an expiration date on the offer. They don't owe me nothing, but just one of those things. So I don't know. I'm assuming it's happened to other people before, but like I say, I really don't remember it happening to me in a long, long time where I've kind of really been thinking about, I've seriously been efforting at making this happen, pull the trigger on this fucking gun, and it's not going to happen. So I don't really want to talk about it too much more than just to put that out there that I'm a grown man and I feel like a little kid being told Christmas is over or something. So, I don't know. Did that happen to you guys? Have you had something happen where you just had an opportunity and didn't take it? And just, I'm not saying I'm crippled by it, but like I say, I'm surprised by how much it bothers me.
Every day I go downstairs and I look at that Makarov patch that's sitting on top of my gun locker, and it reminds me how that Makarov was literally pulled out of my hands. It was in my cart. That was supposed to be my gun. The money was there to buy the gun. And when I went to buy the gun, Foos bought it from under me. Now, it's not his fault. He just happened to enter his credit card information before me, and he got the last Makarov from J&G Sales that was on sale for $249. Damn. And I know I can buy any Makarov, but that is the Makarov. I'm sure if I pester him enough, he would give in. I mean, he seems like the kind of guy that would cave under pressure. And so I'm going to see what I can do to try to get that Makarov in 2019. We're going to see what we can do.
You know that if you would have gone to Tulsa this year, he would have brought it and just...
Well, he let me touch it in his hotel room last year. That sounds really bad, but I'm talking about the gun here. Makarov. Oh, he did. Oh, yeah. He dangled it in front of me and said, "Here, why don't you fondle this for a little while and tell me what you think?" And I said, "Foos."
Not at the range or anything. But
I said, why don't you sell this to me? He's like, "I don't know." He goes, surplus guns are going up in price. Now he's getting greedy. He's getting greedy.
Well, it would be illegal. Technically, it would be illegal in lines like that. So he couldn't. His hands were tied.
Yeah. No, we would have gone through an FFL transfer. He could have shipped it to my place just so I would have known what the product was I was going to get. But the fact that it was there and it was taken from me, I'm just still kind of bitter about it. I need to let it go, but I just can't. I don't know why. So I've come here for help tonight. But otherwise, no. But in all fairness, no, it's all good. I've had many opportunities to buy one and stuff, and it's one of the few kind of milsurps I haven't owned or, would just like to maybe even consider as like a daily carry, just kind of for fun, I guess, but that's it for me, man. That's about the only one because everything else always seems to be available online if you want it. So that's my sad story, bro.
I've had a couple times where I found like you know, a dream gun or something, you know, one of those bucket list guns, and like private cell, called the person up and, you know, talked to them, and they might be like 3 or 4 hours away from me, and you're like, okay, you know, you go through all these hoops and exchange pictures and information and stuff, and you're like, all right, I'm on my way to buy your gun. It's going to take me 3 hours to get there. And then you show up and the guy's like, oh, a guy, like you literally pull up and you see a guy leaving with the gun, and you're like, what? You know, like
Dude,
I've had
that's
that happen to me
wrong,
a
man.
couple of times, man, and I've been like, oh, dude, like not only hurt but like mad and just like all these emotions at once, kind of a thing. I've been like I've had that happen to me a couple times now, man, and oh yeah.
It's
Yep.
I think it is the grown up version of what you go through as a kid. It really is
Like,
the grown up
what-
version of that. Not GI Joe guy not being on the shelf at Kmart anymore. You've been waiting all week to go buy Snake Eyes and he's gone. You know, that's
Well,
what
like
happened.
one time it was such a bucket list gun for me, right? And I didn't have the cash, but it was such a desirable gun that you couldn't get that I stopped and got like a payday loan for like $600 to make up some of the cash I was short, right? And then that payday
Yeah.
loan ended up, even though like I literally paid it off the same day because I didn't get the gun, it still costed me like $700 to pay it off, right?
Oh
Like,
man.
you know, like and stuff, and I didn't even get the gun, you know, because the guy sold it out from underneath me. Like, so I'm even like I tell him now like 3-4 times now, like, I am on my way. Do not sell this gun. It's gonna take me 2 or 3 hours to get there or whatever.
Yep.
Like, you know, I really make sure like, hey, don't sell this gun from out underneath me. I make sure they know. Like, if I'm on my way, don't do it.
Like I have cash in hand coming just for you. All right. Yeah. Oh man. What was the other one? Oh man, I kind of experienced that also. Not that I could have ever afforded it, but they had the FK, the BRNO FK 75 or whatever, the $7,000 handgun. They had one of those at Tulsa, and they had one. I got a chance to hold that, and I was just like, man, this thing is just sweet. But then you look at the price tag, you're thinking, okay, I can buy a nice used pickup truck for this price. So,
Right.
or one hell of a van. Gee, you could have bought a nice van for $7,000. Well, I don't know. Vans have a high resale, so it's hard telling. But yeah.
All right. Well, I didn't do a good job of introducing the show. I got right into my problems. But we got Travis joining us from Caliber Corner and
Yeah.
this P111 on the Gun Streamer and other channel and other places.
Yep.
Thanks for jumping in. Glad to have you on. Normally you're getting ready for your show, but with your
Yeah. About this time, I'm getting ready to go to bed and get ready to get up. But yeah, so Caliber Corners moved to Thursdays from 5 to 7 Central Time, 6 to 8 East Coast Time, over on gunchannels.com. So guys, make sure you check it out. Just firearms discussion pretty much every week. I love talking about guns. It's a hobby of mine. It's a lot of fun. And I learn something every time. And I got a great panel that joins in. So I appreciate the invite for tonight, man. Thank you.
You bet. And Dead Horse jumping in from Utah. And I don't think I've ever seen you guys. Have you guys ever been in a chat? I certainly haven't had you on the Daily Gun Show, I don't think.
Yeah, we've been in the Daily Gun Show together before, but like that was like when 5 other people are in there.
Maybe a full camera.
Yeah. Now we haven't tag teamed it like this though, but no.
So, the show's developed into a panel discussion, and people are welcome to join in. But everybody's in Tulsa, probably crashing or bullshitting right now. At least the people that I normally send the links to. So if anybody wants the link, feel free to ask us over on Gun Channels. But otherwise, if you got questions for these two, got an interesting knowledge set here tonight. Normally we talk about industry or tech. Have you guys had any industry or tech things on your radar lately?
Last night Clover had a really good podcast that he did talking about what we use to make our videos, and it was kind of interesting. Like a lot of us either started with just something real simple and have evolved into lots of different gadgets, accessories, and really gotten into, the cameras and stuff. And then a lot of people have pulled back because they don't want to carry so much crap with them when they make their videos, when they go live and things like that. So it's been kind of interesting seeing the evolution of everybody. And we were just talking about the gear that we share to make our videos. And a lot of guys can make it work with, like an unregistered iPhone 5 that's just unlocked. And some people use, that multi-$1,000 DSLRs. And yeah, it was a good discussion. It was a lot of fun to talk about that and the software that we use in the computers and kind of the tech side of it. So it was a fun discussion last night.
I enjoyed him talking about that thumb trigger AR from Iron Horse.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something kind of tech, like new out there. That's kind of just not the norm, right? So that Iron Horse Firearms is basically an AR-15 that's cut out in the rear of the grip, and that's where the trigger is. So there is no normal, like, trigger guard or trigger at all forward of the grip. That's just all now slab aluminum, right? Just a solid piece of aluminum of the receiver, and then it's cut out behind the grip and in the rear of the receiver, and that's where the trigger is that you operate with your thumb. And I'm not sure, but I think that it I'm not sure. I didn't hear Clover say this, but I think the reason like they kind of did that was for like places like California and stuff that had certain laws about uh, things with triggers, with pistol grips and stuff like that, right? So I'm not sure, but I think that might be legal in California now, without
Well,
like one
so
of those little blade things behind it.
let's go tech on this. So guns developed from fire lances, where they would take a barrel and stick it on a piece of wood, like a pole, and it would be at the end of a pole, like the point of a spear, and they would stick that pole down in the ground, have a little hole at the end of the barrel, load it up with rocks or whatever and gunpowder, and then light it through that little hole, and then it would explode, and the recoil would go down that stick into the ground. So, because they were shooting cannons, basically, right? So they didn't have a stock or nothing. They just had this like stick that went into the ground. Eventually, they start carrying those things around and making little mortars and stuff. Somebody figures out, well, if I don't put so much black powder or whatever in there, gunpowder in there, I can hold this up to my shoulder. So you get the stocks and all that. So at some point, I guess, I don't know if anybody's ever looked into who come up with the trigger idea, the lock, basically, right? The trigger hammer situation. But I'm guessing that was just because you have this barrel, which is basically a staff or a rod, a cylinder, and you're going to hold that thing up to your shoulder, I guess. Well, it's just ergonomic to have a perpendicular thing come out of it, right, with a grip. And then since your hand's already on this perpendicular thing, pull the trigger. So I guess the other option would have been to have been some sort of a button, like on a pen or something, right? Like a button, like on a lightsaber, where you're holding this thing against your shoulder, and you're holding it like a bazooka or a law rocket launcher, and you just kind of push a button on it. And that would have been awkward, I think, right? So they went with the pistol grip, I guess, because it's kind of common sense. And then the trigger's right there because it makes sense to put the trigger where your hand is, right? So this idea of putting the thing up by your thumb, I guess at first I was going to ask, do you think that's going to screw with your aiming? Because now you're pushing with this big muscle of your thumb, and that's got to be different. It takes a lot of wrist muscle, I guess, what I'm thinking, to push your thumb down. So that's just a whole different muscle situation to push this thing. And now you're pushing down on the back of your gun. So before, you're pulling backwards in line with your gun. And if, depending on how sensitive the trigger is, that might not interfere with your holding your gun in alignment with the target at all. But now you're pushing down, like you're pushing against the alignment of the gun on target. So I guess I'm wondering, is it going to be a practical trigger, or is it not?
I think,
or is it, just simply a thing to comply with horrible infringement?
one thing, I think that there's probably definitely going to be a learning curve on it, no matter what. If you're used to a traditional firearm, right? It's just something totally different. So there's probably definitely going to be some kind of learning curve on it. I don't know how heavy the trigger is. I haven't heard any specs on oh, is it, because of the way that it works and the leverage, is it like something, like a nice crisp 3-pound trigger? I haven't heard anything about that. But when I compare it to like the California blade grip thingies, right, where you can't even get the rear of your hand around the pistol grip at all, so your hand's just kind of sitting on the side of it. When I compare it to that, I don't think, even though you're using your regular trigger finger for that, I don't think it can be any worse than that. I really don't.
Well, haven't you ever shot guns like that, though? I even shoot ARs like that, where I'll just hold the thing up to my shoulder and my hand's just over here, whatever. I don't touch the pistol grip, and I'm just pulling the trigger. I do that with bolt actions a lot.
I have to have my thumb wrapped around something. I have to. I can't have my thumb sitting on the same side as my hand. That's just that bugs me. I'm sure I could get used to it if I was forced to, right? But like, or if I learned that way or something. But man, it's just not having my thumb wrapped, like literally not holding something like a normal grip. That feels really weird to me. You
See
know?
that? Yeah, it's a problem I run into on those bolt action precision rifles that have a pistol grip on them. I'm so much of a traditionalist of just the straight stock with your thumb wrapped around, the left side or right side if you're a lefty. That like when I bench those, when I put those rifles in a lead sled, I can't comfortably grip the pistol grip and pull the trigger when it's in the lead sled, and like standing and stuff, it's a little bit different. But it's just weird because I keep going back to this grip like I'm gripping a traditional rifle stock.
Yeah.
Now, one thing,
that's what I should have said, because that's what I was thinking. What you just said there, because when you got it like on a bench and you got sandbags, or like you're saying in an actual holding thing, then it's like just awkward to hold a pistol grip. You're kind of your arm is coming in from around the back. It's Joe Bidening the gun, so it's natural to just wiggle your fingers.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, and when it's in the bench, I find the less I can touch the gun, the less movement it exhibits before I pull the trigger. So I try not to. I mean, I do hold them for ARs and things like that, but I'd almost rather just have my finger on the trigger and slowly pull back and let the weight of the gun kind of sit there as I pull the trigger before I take the shot. Now that's just for lead sledding it, but one thing about that trigger too that I remember reading is that it's also part of the design is for people that are disabled. So if you wouldn't have fingers or you wouldn't have necessarily even a hand, you could still modify some sort of an apparatus so you could fire your weapon without having to worry about not having.
That's a great point, Travis.
I think that's what I remember reading about originally was the idea behind it, but I could see how it would definitely fall in line with being, California DOJ approved because of the lack of a pistol grip or even a trigger, a traditional index finger trigger. So, yeah.
I think it's either way. I think it's something new and innovative, and and new and innovative things like that. They don't always have to be a success, because something else later on down the road can come from this, right? But it's just, I mean, who knows what kind of successes this might lead to down in the road, or how many people it might help, like you point out, that might be missing a couple fingers or something, right?
Yeah.
And, I mean, so I think it's something new and innovative, and I like the idea of it. Just because it's creative. I've never seen it before, and it can be complete junk for all I know, but I still think it's creative and something new. So I respect it.
Can we talk about the elephant in the room, though?
What's that?
And that's the fact that an elephant can shoot this. We've always had this line where you needed an opposable thumb in order to shoot a gun, and now we've made a button on there that any dolphin or monkey or robot can shoot it now.
Well, I mean, cats now can just press a pawn and pull the trigger. I mean, I always thought if cats had thumbs, they would definitely kill all of us because
they'll like just tap on that thing just because it sounds neat every time. You know how when a cat will slap on something a bunch of times?
Oh yeah,
that's worse than a bump trigger. You could get a kitten trigger. You put a little springy thing on there with a little foam, little fuzzball, and then you put a kitten on your shoulder. You shoulder that thing. The kitten starts to wail on that little fuzzball.
I'm telling you,
faster than any bump fire thing.
Oh, easy. I mean, yeah, those cats they're so agile and fast, I mean, because they really would, do something bad to us if they could. Because you look at them and they're upset because they're not like their ancestors. They're not like their panther relatives and stuff. So they're kind of limited in what they can do. But still, that's just my thoughts on the matter.
And then I'm pretty sure that those like they come as a complete lower. And they work with any standard upper, so you're not forced to buy like a whole rifle from this company. Which I don't know if you've noticed that, but some companies who come out with like a new product or something kind of innovative, they'll put it like into their rifles, and they're like, "Oh, you got to buy our whole rifle to get this feature," right?
Yeah,
so I think this company, it was pretty smart as in saying, "No, you don't got to buy a whole rifle from us. You can just buy like basically just the lower, and it works with any upper." So I think they were pretty smart in that fashion.
It doesn't have a typical. Well, how does it have? That's interesting that you bring that up, because I assumed it was a complete gun. Because if you're going to change your lower to, the thumb is up on the back in the receiver extension.
Yeah. Okay. So imagine a Magpul grip, and right where like the curl goes around on the rear of the receiver, right? Like for like your beaver tail with the grip.
It's under the receiver extension then.
Yeah, so imagine a cut right in the back of that grip going into the lower.
Okay, so that makes sense. So you could put it still uses a standard carrier and buffer spring and all that. Okay.
So I think they were really smart in not making it some kind of proprietary weird thing where you had, of course, there's proprietary parts in it, right? Because it's so different. But at least as far as everything else other than the lower, that's just all standard mil spec, from my understanding. So you just buy their lower for like $400 and it comes complete, and then you just put whatever parts you want on it. Like I said, if you're missing a finger or something, I think that's a very common thing here in the United States. I think a lot of people may not realize how common it is for people to be missing digits, but that's a really common thing here. And so that could definitely, I think that could help. I mean, just a vast number of people either get them into shooting or, help them continue shooting.
True. The AR itself is a good platform for that, because since the original design has the flip down trigger guard, so you can wear mittens, and that allows you to put some sort of like a paintball looking trigger or something for somebody that's got a grip issue.
Oh yeah.
Unlike some guns where you'd have to modify. I mean, you can literally just swap parts and modify an AR. So we had a couple of things from Becca when we were talking about getting, I'm calling it kicked in the nuts, because it's like more than just getting kicked in the face or something. That goes away. You can shake that off and keep going, right? Kicked in the nuts, it just sits there and lingers. So Chance is saying, happened to me on a Gaunt revolver. The guy posted it for 120, talked with him, scheduled to meet, called him on my way there and he said, oh, I forgot. I got somebody else coming to buy it in 3 hours. And he was like,
oh. That's also part of the problem when you sell, is that money talks so much. We can also talk about, actually on the selling end, when we were allowed to sell guns through Facebook, 3 or 4 years ago, I would post a picture of one, because, well, it depends on your state where you live, and you can legally sell a handgun to another individual in Nebraska so long as they have, the concealed carry permit, or they've got the right documentation. You don't have to go through an FFL.
State resident.
Yeah, state resident, and then I think it was just either Nebraska driver's license or a concealed carry permit. But then they also have to have like a pistol purchase permit, I guess you could call it. It's something ridiculous that we have in the state. But I would list guns, and you would get a guy that says, "Yeah, man, I want this. I'm gonna get. I want to buy it from you. I'm gonna come get it in like 3 or 4 hours." And the next person would chime in, "Hey, I'll meet you with the money in 30 minutes. Tell me where." And it's like, oh my God, how do you do this? And then you'll have one guy that's like, "Yeah, I'll give you exactly what you want for it. I'll give you cash. Meet me tomorrow at noon." It's like, okay, do you give it to the first person that wants it, or do you go for the person that's got the money that can meet you sooner?
Well, I think sometimes what happens is, like, let's say you're selling a gun for 600, because I've had it happen to me, and a guy's like, "All right, I'll buy it from you for like 550 or something," right? And you're like, "Okay, I'll make this deal." And then 20 minutes later, a guy calls up and says, "I'll give you the 600 for it." Or you tell him, "Oh, it's sold," right? And he's like, "Oh, it's sold." He's like, "Well, I'll give you 650." And he's offering more than what you even want. And then that's where the dilemma. So I still sell, if there's a guy on his way, just because, like I said, it's happened to me, I sell to the first guy that's on his way. It's first come, first serve. If I say a price to someone, if I tell him 550, then it's 550. If someone else calls up offering more, it sucks, but that's just the way it is. So that's why I tend to put my guns out for sale now for maybe about $50 to $100 more than what they're worth, because I know I'm really talked down that,
negotiate down the price on it. No, I hear you, man. And then, like a lot of us, we're a small circle on these Facebook groups, and so a lot of these guys, them, and a couple of these guys even live in my own town, and I live in a small town. So it's like, I don't want to screw these people over, because they might also make comments about you down the road. Like if you advertise something or you want to buy something from somebody else. So it just kind of depends on who you hang out with. And it might be different in a bigger state, but here, like the Central Nebraska gun owners group that I belong to on Facebook, we don't advertise guns for sale anymore. But back in the day, there was like maybe 400 or 500 of us, but you would see the same guys commenting all the time and chatting with each other and stuff, and selling guns and asking, "Hey, is this a good person to sell to? Do you, is that a good person I should do business with? What do you think?" And, so. But now we've all moved over to MeWe. We pretty much got away from Facebook, and all of our little gun groups went over to MeWe now. So Facebook didn't want us there, so we went to someplace else that didn't care. So that's where all of us went for buying and selling.
All right, we had a good question come up. Well, it wasn't really a question, but I'm throwing it out there. Can you be a gun guy without owning them?
If under 18 years old, I think yes. Like, cause there's
Yeah.
I for sure, I think it being under 18, you can still be like 16, 17, whatever kid, and still be totally into guns. And I would consider it, I guess, a gun guy, right? Trying to learn about it, and that's your hobby or your focus at the moment or whatever. Yeah. And then I can see like certain situations where you're forced to sell them, right, or something, and you may not own any guns at the moment, but still be like into guns and a gun guy. Yeah. If you've never ever ever bought one and you're like 40 years old, I don't know. That's like I like
I
I
guess
don't
you played a
know.
lot of Call of Duty, so I guess you think you're an expert. I don't know. That's
No. Well, I think you can totally be somebody that's older, because what if your interest is like antique or unobtainable, or it's just
Well,
stuff that's
yeah.
super expensive, that kind of thing.
But then are you a gun guy if you're into this like one certain old gun from like the 1500s or something, right? Like that's unattainable. Then are you really a gun guy, or are you just like an antique collector or something? Like I don't know.
Well, no, but I'm saying like maybe you're just interested in like the evolution or the just some facet of firearms that's not necessarily something you
The
can possess.
mechanical workings or the coatings or something.
Like maybe the firearms inventors, right? Like that stuff I find fascinating, but you can't really. There's nothing to possess. I mean, I guess I could try to buy old guns or something, but that wouldn't. That would just be owning an item of the. Anyway, so I'm just saying there's got to be things, and maybe just the mechanical. Like you can be a machinist or something and build parts or like innovate or design, and not really.
I'm gonna say
Wait.
I'm gonna say because there's the word gun in gun guy, that the answer is still no. Like if you want, like, can you be like an inventor guy or like some kind of like researcher guy or an enthusiast guy? Like sure, like, but a gun guy, like there's the word gun in there. So I think you have to eventually own a gun. Like this, at least one. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, until you've had the experience of actually firing one or had an opportunity to shoot one, it's hard to really speak about the kind of the enthusiasm. But like you said, what if you're into like dueling sets of from the 1500s or whatever, 1400s,
Or
and
like
you've never actually fired one, but you know everything about them and you know their lineage and their history and
like the drilling.
Yeah.
The guns that cost like $3,000 a piece or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's possible. It just,
I don't. Can you be like a dog guy and never own dogs, or a car guy and never own a car, or like anything else?
Oh yeah, dude, I'm totally a car guy, man. I'm
You could
totally
be
a
like
car
into
guy. Yeah.
Ferraris or Lamborghinis, and there's no way you can rent one. Maybe. I mean, can a gun guy go rent one and still be a gun guy? You can shoot guns and experience them that way. Have friends that own them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So maybe I should change it to like owning a gun to like actually like shooting them and and handling them and stuff like that. Like actually getting experience with them. So like maybe we should change it from owning them, because I guess there are some places like in England. I'm sure there are gun guys I know that are hardcore gun guys in England, but they're not even allowed to keep a gun in their house. They have their guns locked up basically at their fucking range, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I should change that from owning it to actually like handling them, shooting them, stuff like that.
Dog is saying you're a gun guy as long as you're not anti-gun.
Well, either for us or against us, I'm not actually watching this on YouTube. Is Dog Body out there?
Yeah, he says he's on the road. He can't jump in.
Oh, cool. No, that's fine. I'm going to try to get him on Caliber Corner because I want to have a dog chat with him. We're going to talk dog. Cool. Trying to think if there's anything else in tech that's really come out lately that's kind of making a lot of news, but all these new guns coming out and stuff, and a lot of it's just new designs or new styles, but not a lot of real innovation. I don't know.
I don't know as far as like how innovative it is or anything, but I sure like it. Strike Industries has started making their UDC dust covers, which I've been swearing by for a long, long time is like the best dust cover. They still make them in polymer, but then they started making them out of like a stamped aluminum, and they've changed from that stamped aluminum to a billet aluminum now. which allows them to anodize their dust covers in all their popular colors. They're gold, red, bronze, blue, whatever. FDE. So now they're offering their billet dust covers to match. If you're into the color matching, anodized colored parts, stuff like that, now they're offering their billet dust covers, and those dust covers are the best dust covers. They are. They're the best dust covers on the market.
I'm looking at one right now.
Yeah, they're the best and easiest to install, and and they actually work. They actually do their job as far as keeping dirt, debris, and even water out of your gun through the dust cover. So
they have like an O-ring, like a seal built into the billet that's machined into it, like a little oval track or like a racetrack.
Yep,
I'm looking at right now.
So do the polymer ones, and yeah, they're awesome. They actually do a job. They actually work.
Yeah, $19. That's not bad. $18.95.
Like I said, I don't know how innovative that is, but I sure like that. And Strike Industries is one of those companies that I continue to see really innovating, pushing the market. They have M-Lock aluminum forends for like Benelli's and Remingtons and Mossbergs now. That are like your aluminum kind of like handguard for your AR, but for your shotgun, right? And I don't know. They're one of the most innovative companies. Every single year, they're the ones that are really coming out with new products, both for Glocks, ARs, like even other weapons like MP5s and stuff. They've been coming out with stuff, and they seem to continually be kind of pushing the envelope of what do our customers actually want? Like, not just like, oh, we're gonna they really seem to listen to their customers. They really do. The first thing the first thing that happened when their aluminum dust covers came out, their stamped ones, was like that first month. People were like, when are colors going to be available? And they're like, oh, we can't do colors out of these. We'd have to do it out of billet. Everyone said do billet, and literally 6 months later, they have billet colors. Within 6 months. Most companies, it's taken them years to change stuff like that and push out new product.
Yeah, they got a pretty decent line, man. I'm checking a bunch of their stuff, man. They make all kinds of great little
their new Glock sights.
And
Glock sights and Glock backplates are really, really nice, and their Glock triggers are probably the most affordable aluminum, nice Glock trigger you're gonna get. They're really affordable. And that's another thing about Strike too, is that their stuff's not only pretty innovative and good stuff. It's always pretty affordable too. And that's a veteran-owned company too. The owner of Strike Industries was a helicopter pilot for the Air Force.
They're pretty much comparable with Magpul. That's kind of the pricing I'm seeing here, looking at their pistol grips and their rails and things like that. They're basically on par with Magpul. Granted, but they're doing a lot of stuff out of, like you said, billet and steel or whatnot. So, yeah. Company I really like is NDZ Performance. They're not as quite as
awesome.
fancy. I've got one of their stainless steel guide rods, but I've actually, they respond back and communicate well with customers. And just the fact that they offer some, I guess you could say, performance parts for true budget pistols like the Smith & Wesson SD9 VE, that's kind of cool. They've actually added some enhancements to make the gun better to shoot, easier to manipulate, easier to take down. So I think there's a market for those lower end guns for just a few little parts that are premium parts,
I actually buy a lot of stuff from NDZ for rimfires. That's one of the for rimfires. That's one of my go-to places for the M&P 1522 or the MP22. They've always been a pretty big rimfire kind of supplier for the rimfire world. So coming out with having products that no one else had. I think they were the first ones that came out with an aluminum charging handle for the 1522, right? Instead of the polymer one it comes with and stuff like that. So they've always been pretty innovative and coming out with new products like that for the rimfire world. So that's how I know those guys.
And I've had a couple people send me some of their extended charging handle latches. Those little, you just tap them in with that pin and put the new button in, or the new handle on the left side of your charging handle.
Yep.
And the fact you can just take your little mil-spec charging handle and make it more accessible for about $12 and not have to drop $70 or $80 or $90 on a fancy charging handle. I mean, that's pretty cool, you know. And I mean, I've got those expensive charging handles, and it's kind of a sting to buy them because you can live without them, but they're really nice to have that extra purchase on that when you're charging the weapon, you know.
I like the Gas Buster charging handle. That's the only one that I would spend more money on. That's any different in design than a regular charging handle, besides the actual latch itself, because it does help redirect gas away from your face when you're shooting. So especially if you're shooting suppressed, that's what you want if you have a suppressed AR.
Who makes that now? Is that also Strike Industries?
Oh, I forget who makes that.
That's a gun.
That's
okay.
PRI makes it.
PCI.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to look into something like that. I've just got a couple of the Bravo Company VTORs or whatever, the ambidextrous ones, and those, they're nice, but man, like I said, they're $70-$80, you know.
I do like shopping at DeltaTeamTactical.com if you're looking to build an AR. Like, that's the place to go.
Okay.
They are what is it, Davidson Defense outlet. So everything that Davidson Defense makes that they don't sell directly for whatever reason, or overstock that they have,
Daniel?
Or no, it's Davidson Defense out of Utah.
Yeah, they make uppers, don't they, for ARs?
Yeah.
Or no, yeah, it's okay.
They assemble up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they assemble uppers and sell parts kits. And Davidson Defense and Delta Team Tactical are one and the same company. It's just Davidson Defense is the storefront. That's the actual store location. And Delta Team Tactical is their major online presence. Even though Davidson Defense has their own website, they're the exact same company, same owner. It's just that really Davidson Defense is the storefront. Delta Team Tactical is their online presence. And
Nice.
yeah, they're good guys down there. I've met them and I've gone through. I've had their whole tour, and they're doing some pretty good stuff down there, keeping prices cheap, getting people into building, their own AR for $300 and stuff like that, right? Getting them into shooting cheap. So I think that they're using a lot of stuff like Bear Creek Arsenal barrels and stuff like that, Chinese handguards and stuff, but they've kind of, I have figured it out to where I wouldn't say like, the Chinese handguards they're selling are like top quality or anything, right? They're not like definitely like, they're not going to be comparable to an American company, but they've kind of figured it out, I think, to where like, oh, this Chinese handguard's not going to be absolute crap and fall off on you your first range shoot session, right? So they've kind of figured out like, oh, like, this is like, like the best Chinese handguards we found. So these are the ones we're going to be putting on our kits kind of a thing. And so, for absolute minimal budget type builds, like I think that they're doing a good service out there for people, putting everything in one place and all together and making it easy for people to buy kits that basically come with everything and keeping the prices down.
If you buy their like unassembled kits where they just send you like an upper that comes in pieces and everything for the lower except for the lower all in pieces, and you have to put it together yourself completely, you save, I forget what they charge for like a fee for putting an upper together, but it's like $20 or $30. And then I don't think they sell lowers directly, so you'd have to put that together yourself, but still you're saving like $30 for doing it yourself, And if you're trying to pinch pennies, $30 is big.
Oh, definitely. If you're doing a build or you're trying to stretch your buying dollar, or you're maybe you have to draw out the amount of money you have to spend on something. If you can put a little bit more towards it to get to what you want to get to sooner, that's always nice to be able to do too. Definitely.
They don't do the completed lowers under the Delta Team Tac name on the website, but like at Davidson Defense, like at the actual shop, Davidson Defense, they will build you an entire gun from scratch, or they have complete rifles hanging on the wall that are already built, custom Cerakoted. They do custom Cerakoting services at Davidson Defense, stuff like that. So there's a lot about, like Davidson Defense, like they don't even advertise on either website, right? And so either website, they don't advertise like, oh, we'll build you a whole custom rifle from start to finish, Cerakote and everything. But they actually do that. They just don't advertise it on their website because I think it's just, as far as I know, their backlog's so busy right now. It's like 4 months to get a completed rifle from them. That's how busy those guys are.
Yeah, every time I order from them, that's one thing that kind of sucks. Is like
Shipping's 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah.
they're like how Palmetto used to be.
Yeah.
They've definitely been getting better. They have. But I want to go back to NDZ for a second, Travis. That NDZ performance. If
Yeah.
you have a 1522 and you're using that as an actual like training rifle, not just like plinking, but you're like using it as a dedicated trainer, right? To up your skill set for real ARs. And so you're really yanking on that charging handle and stuff. Get rid of that polymer charging handle and get one of the aluminums for it from NDZ. Like right off the bat, that's one of the best upgrades you can get for the M&P 1522 is that charging handle. Yeah, like that's that's kind of like a must-have, I think.
Yeah, and so it's a good thing that they're meeting that kind of that market need. You don't have to spend a lot of money on it. You get a quality part, and it's
you get a billet aluminum charging handle instead of that quality plastic.
Polymer.
Charging handle, right?
Yeah, I
tell you, if you're really yanking back on that and like you're trying to like actually practice under stress and really use it as a trainer, you're gonna break that charging handle. You're gonna break that. You will.
Midnight Range had a question for you, Dead Horse, on the YouTube side.
Oh, hold on. He needs to take up $1 first.
Oh, you got to pay to play, huh?
No, I guess for this guy, he gets one in the house.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. It just says, Dead Horse, do you buy expensive charging handles or go with mil spec or knockoffs to save money? Like on Wish.com, they've got the knockoff versions, and I've tried some of them. I haven't run them long term, but they make ones that look exactly like Bravo Company, but they're the Chinese import ones for like $12.
The problem with the Chinese import ones is that they're a milled cast aluminum charging handle, and it doesn't matter if they say they're 60, 61, or 70, 75. Whatever series Chinese aluminum says it is, go down 1,000 in series. So if it says it's a 70, 75, really it's a 60, 61. If it says it's a 60, 61, it's really a 5,000 series aluminum. Like, that's the truth. It's always a grade less for Chinese aluminum than what they say it is. And then it's more often than not, they're not a billet aluminum part. They're a milled cast aluminum part. So you're getting a 1,000 series less aluminum in a cast aluminum part. That's really thin walls that under stress, I don't know if you know about how much force it actually takes to actually pull back a bolt, let alone when you're under stress and you're really, yanking that back, right? Like, I don't know. Like, once that breaks, how are you gonna, are you gonna try and thumb reload your gun with your, thumb in your BCG back through the ejection port, or like, what are you gonna do? And so I don't know. So I don't think it has to be like a $60 charging handle. Strike Industries charging handles for $25 are pretty dang good, and those are actual real billet. But for like a cheap mil spec one, like Badger Defense, stuff like that, I think that some of those guys make about the best standard mil spec charging handles. Or even a Palmetto State Armory charging handle or something like that is going to be a real quality charging handle. But the Chinese ones for like saving that $8 or $10 over like a PSA one, dude, I don't think it's worth it. I really don't.
So you got an aluminum tube with all its mass in a bolt carrier, and like Dead Horse says, you got a channel of aluminum with an aluminum part that you're pulling back on that all the mass of that firearm. So the way that it works, you can't take it apart when that thing is screwed up. So you got issues there, and there's more than just the force required to take it back. If you torque it at all, it'll torque inside or twist. It'll yaw, I guess, roll inside of the what you would call the channel in the upper, right, where it lives. So if you can, most of the time people aren't doing it correctly with two fingers pulling back straight back. You're pulling back from a side, and that creates massive tension or torque, I guess. And then most people don't even know how to clear malfunctions. They've never experienced most of the malfunctions, and doing it under duress with dirt and debris and noise and wind and rain and water and stuff. All that stuff creates compounding levels of difficulty. So if you've got to do the ultimate stress on that charging handle, It would be probably mortaring, Type 3 bolt, was it bolt override malfunction, a Type 4 malfunction or whatever, where a case cartridge gets stuck up behind the bolt carrier,
Up above it, yeah.
and you've got to basically just you're putting
Shear it.
you're putting a lot of torque on that thing in order to try to bounce it, like shock it into coming backwards, and take those two dissimilar metals and pull them apart from each other. Anyway, it's a real stressful thing on the thing, and that's when you don't get that situation unless you're under fire doing something horrible. So that's the last time you want your gun to break. So that's where, like that was saying, saves a couple of dollars on a part versus have a gun that actually works when you need it to under the worst conditions. And I go with steel. I mean, it's not ideal, it's not perfect, but I just have that, and that's what I use as a steel charging handle. And it's just a typical, nothing fancy. The little lever on the, just not on the lever. What is it called? The switch. What do you call the lever?
latch? The latch.
The latch might be a little bit bigger, a little bit oversized, but barely. It's just a standard one. I don't like the ambidextrous at all. I don't know if you've never slung a gun or how you sling your gun, but I don't want extra stuff to make my carrier disengage.
Yeah, that's one thing. A lot of people, like, they'll have a single point sling in a carrier, and they'll have these, ambi charging handles and stuff, and where there's no recession to the latch, the actual handle is the latch, pretty much. All right, all one piece. So that they're sitting there running with their gun in a class or something, and their AR is bouncing up and down on their chest and on their plate carrier, and it's pulling their bolt out of battery, right? As they're running with that charging handle, like that gun bouncing up and down, that charging handle literally pulls their bolt out of battery, and then they go up to fire and click, a dead round. And yeah, like it's depending on how and that's, I guess, depending on what you're using your gun for and carrying it. But charging handles that stick out, that have those wide wings, they're more likely to get caught on something, and there's no guard there or anything to prevent it pulling that bolt back, and you only got to pull that bolt back a little bit, and now you basically are on a dead round.
And that's like the worst situation, because you don't know it happened. Your charging handle is now released, so it's just loose, right? And it's got those giant wings on it. That's when it gets torqued and bent, and now you go to use the thing, you can't slide it forward.
I would just like to use this time to say that I've got a Bravo Company ambidextrous charging handle for sale right now. If anybody wants it, you can PayPal me. I'll be happy to drop it in the mail for you. No, I never thought about that, though. That's a real good point, but I don't really,
That's a lot of ifs, though. I mean,
yeah, but anything could potentially become your go-to-war weapon. But I guess I got it on there just for the convenience of use and ease of use at the range and things like that. But I could honestly see where you're coming from with that, and
So Tread's saying, what about mil-spec charging handles with the aftermarket grabber thingy? And the issue with those is they put undue torque on the pin, basically, since the thing is designed, to work with the spec parts. When you start putting a larger thing on there, they used to break pins.
But the Strike Industry one, though, includes, I think it includes a hardened pin. So you should be getting something that might be a step above just the standard mil-spec pin for that.
Oh, so in other words, they put a bigger one on, knowing that
it might be a little bit harder aluminum, or maybe even steel versus an aluminum. When you get that extended latch from Strike, they give you that and the pin.
I've seen a little
channel of aluminum's designed to be pulled back, not delicately, but at least correctly, like straight in line with the channel. So as soon as you start putting torque on one side,
that's true.
So if you put a large enough lever, latch, or whatever, anything on there that you can get more and more meat on your hand on there, you're just putting more and more muscle on the one side. That's the issue.
Yeah.
And then there's that little spot too where the charging handle latches onto the outside of the upper, on the frame of the upper. And if you play with that too much, it can get worn down a little bit and then not quite grab onto it correctly. And so when you have the upper off of the lower and you're playing around with it, the whole thing, like the bolt carrier group, can just slide out of the back of the gun when you're not expecting it to, because it's not being held in by that latch.
That's interesting. That it should be a weak point. I haven't specifically heard too many people complain about that, like you say, like wearing or anything. Have you heard of that one, Dead Horse? Because you would think that's like a real Achilles heel for the AR, or at least potentially.
I'm sorry, G. I was in the kitchen grabbing a drink. What was the question?
Okay, hold on. First off, you're not allowed to just walk away from a chat. That's crazy. So no, we were talking about the what did you say in the part where the charging handle latches to
top of the receiver. Yeah.
And if that ever gets worn away, and I was just saying, I haven't heard anybody from my adventures or travels.
Oh, where the latch actually latches onto the receiver? Yeah, that does get worn, especially with steel latches with excessive use. Most guys will never wear that out. But like if you're, if it's like a class rifle or something like that, yeah, like you'll definitely notice a lot of wear on that, and pretty soon it does become so loose. But there are a lot of fixes with anything just from like JB weld. Just a tiny little bit of JB weld on it usually fixes that right up. But a lot of charging handle companies now are pretty much just using an aluminum latch to prevent excessive wear. So like most companies that I'm aware of pretty much have all gone aluminum latches.
Okay. I don't think it's really an issue while you're shooting, though, honestly, because like there's nothing that's going to happen because the charging handle isn't latched all the way on correctly.
Yeah, what happens is you get a bloody nose.
Yeah, you get it happen right back into your face.
Yeah, and it hits. And even though you think, oh, this is just a loose system, the bolt carrier's not grabbing onto it at all. Bull fucking shit. It'll throw that charging handle so hard into your face, it will give you a bloody nose, like big time, or knock out a tooth, or a fat lip, or something else, especially if you shoot nose to charging handle position. Oh yeah, buddy. I've had it happen to me.
Wow.
Even Larry Vickers has had it happen to him. There's a video of Larry Vickers having a bloody face because of a worn upper receiver and a charging handle coming back and hitting him in his face.
All right, well, I'm buying some JB weld to fix one of my uppers then.
Well, that's the whole thing, is that little part that he's talking about JB weld, and it's not like it's critical because it only has to hold that little latch. So, but the thing is, it can also, when you're just walking around with the gun, if you got barrel up and that thing falls out, then again, you got potential of it getting torqued or tweaked, or just because it's not normally out flopping around. And then of course it makes a lot of noise.
Right. Yeah, that would be the only other thing too, is it'll just like flop out sometimes.
Yeah, that's the thing about the AR. If it doesn't like you, it can punch you in the face while you're shooting.
Yep.
Doesn't happen very often, though. Like I say, I just haven't seen that particular issue. At least that doesn't come to mind, anybody bitching about that little thing wearing out. But again, most people don't use steel because it's got the problem where it'll not torque, so that means it'll ruin an upper. Like it'll stay straight. But if you do torque the handle, it'll just break the channel in the upper, or bend the channel in the upper. So you kind of want some parts to be sacrificial, right? You want them to break so that they don't break the bigger part. All right, well, anything else?
I just posted a video. My brother bought an R8, if you guys know what that is.
In a car?
It's like an Audi's version of a Lamborghini.
I think, Travis, they're asking how much for that handle.
Which one are we talking about? Which handle?
The charging handle?
Oh no, I was kidding. I was just saying because I was sitting there bragging about how much I love my ambidextrous, and we start talking about how it's gonna fail.
Well, the BCMs aren't bad at all. The BCMs actually aren't bad though.
The ambidextrous will kill you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, no, I said, well, I guess I'll go ahead and sell my ambidextrous one now, even though I saved up for 3 months to buy it. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not going to sell it. I'm going to keep it on there. I mean, it runs fine. Yeah. I mean, at some point, I'll probably just go back to standard mil spec or, Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not going to sell it. I love it.
Now they're calling you a charging handle tease.
Oh my gosh! Well, I was saying it as sarcasm because I was sitting there bragging it up, and then we started talking about, oh yeah, it'll fail, it'll get caught in your plate carrier, and I'm like, oh great, SHTF, and I'm gonna have a freaking charging handle. It's gonna get caught on everything.
Or if you're not if you're not normally running like a single point sling and a plate carrier and all this stuff, then you probably don't have to worry about it, right? So it's all situational and like what it's for and stuff, But it's just something to be mindful of, that those things do catch on stuff, that they're made to catch on something, your fingers, right? So they catch on other stuff. And I mean, I'm gonna be honest, you're both out of battery.
I've never done like any kind of patrol or scout mission or anything like that. It's just been trips to the range and home, playing around with it and cleaning it and stuff. And
well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
let me finish. Go ahead. I don't
Yeah,
wanna-
yeah, no. Go ahead. I was just saying that's pretty much been the extent of, I've done a couple carbine classes, but it's never, I was just running the standard handles at that point back in the day.
So like everybody gets this idea that training is somehow like firearms instruction training classes, especially carbine and tactical pistol, that's somehow like ninja flips and cartwheels and jumping
Oh,
behind
no.
carriers. So most of the time that's just going through and systematically talking about it's all malfunctions. Like it's 1,000% malfunctions. That's all they really talk about. It's just that, dealing with malfunctions in weird situations and, getting experience from people who have seen different weird things happen or consistently see things happen. So you get some tips and tricks. That's a lot of the class. But what I was going to say is, in other words, we use that as sort of a catch-all. Like, well, if you're doing stuff that's, crazy with it, whatever. But what I was going to say, if you don't do crazy stuff with your guns, when you go hunting, you guys, when you go hunting up there, you're still walking. You're not like back east where some places back east where there's like farms. They'll just, their idea of hunting or the only thing they really can do for hunting, because there's no distance, is to climb up a tree and wait for critters to walk by and shoot down at them. You guys aren't doing that out there. You're walking in the areas, like out in the woods.
Either or, you can get a mix of brush. It depends if you're going to go along the river. You can go sit up in a tree stand if you want to, but you could be doing open prairie where you're just stalking or following the trails or going to where they are.
So if you go hunting that way, if you're able to legally, bring an AR with you, because that's the best way to give it, because time with an AR is where you get all the different Murphy's Law stuff. It's not going to a class for even 3 days or something of hardcore use. I mean, you'll definitely stress test stuff, but you're getting like, oh, dang it, that gets caught in that. Like just figuring out where your straps work and what's comfortable with you and your gear. That's like, just go, if you can take it with you camping, if you go camping. But I'm thinking you've talked about going hunting before. If you could just strap your AR that you think you might bring for a bug out bag or shit hits the fan or whatever, just strap it over your back and take it with, even if it's empty, because you're just really getting custom with it, getting more practice with it. So anyway, that's just an idea and then you'll get used to like, well, what happens when I got to set it down and I'm making a fire or we're eating lunch? And, that's when you figure out like, oh man, that thing's right in the wrong way. Every time I set it down, it gets dinked or something. If I move it back 3 inches, now it's not, or, something like that.
It's funny you would say that because I'm actually contemplating taking my my 300 Blackout pistol for a deer hunt in the fall if I can legally hunt with it. And I'm pretty sure I can. In Nebraska, you can shoot semi-automatic as long as it's 5 rounds or less, and you got the right amount of muzzle energy at 100 or 200 yards. And that thing's going to have almost full velocity out of a 10.5-inch barrel. I'm gonna lose a little bit, but not much. And if I'm looking at 300 yards or less, that would actually be perfect. Put an optic on the top. It's a lightweight gun. It's compact. It's
You can just pin a mag, or do they make little 5-round mags?
Oh yeah, no. See, how would I do that? I can use a 5-round P mag if I want to. If any 5-round steel mag, it might not. It's probably not going to feed as reliably as my 300 Blackout mags that I bought, the Magpul ones that I'm using. But you can't.
Yeah,
you can't use it. But I'm only going to do 1 shot, 2 shots max. That's all I'm going to get off. But you might say, well, that's crazy. But no, you've got that round's designed to give you full power out of a shorter barrel out to a certain distance. That's what its intention is, and you can get some really good rounds that would do it, especially if I want to go with something a little bit lighter than what I carried last year,
Wow, 5-round P mags are more expensive than 30-round P mags.
No, I've got a couple of them. I use them for testing. I've got a 5 and a 10.
And some states transfer over like their bird game laws, like only 3 rounds over into like deer hunting and rifle rounds, where you can only have 3 rounds in a rifle. And good luck finding a 3-round mag. And and the way that the law is written is like it can only hold a maximum of 3 rounds, right?
Yeah, it has to be designed to only be able to hold not modified, but only from the factory. Yeah.
So one thing that I've done,
because you can just pin them, right?
Or
it depends on the state.
Like the shotgun guys use a wooden dowel. I just use a 1/4-inch piece of wood board, just pine board or anything like that, for like a 30-round mag or a 20 or 10-round mag. You can just literally cut a piece of pine board about 1.5 inches wide by a 1/4-inch thick, and stick that up inside your mag to the right length, and bam! Now all of a sudden you have a mag that only holds 5 or 3 rounds max.
Yeah, I know you can't hunt in Colorado with a 223. You'd have to have at least like you're saying, like a 300 blackout. But I think you should be fine with that. Like, if you get the 5-round magazine on it, and you
Yeah,
you get it sighted in, you put a good scope or a good red dot or something on it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I got to look at the real specifics of it, but you can hunt with again, you can hunt. I'd have to make sure that you can hunt with a semi-automatic handgun, because that's technically what I'd be doing by law, right? By legal definition of the AR pistol, that's what it is.
And
I don't see why not, as long as I'm not above the magazine capacity and I've got the right round that's got the right amount of energy with it. So.
And as for the 3-shot thing, that's a good excuse to buy one of those Chiappa triple threat guns.
Oh no, we're 5+1 in Nebraska for all of your rifles and semi-autos for hunting, for deer and I don't know about any other game, but yeah.
Do y'all have elk out there?
I think that we have a season for it. I think it's up in like the northwest corner of the state. There's I don't think there's a lot of tags that go out for it, but there are elk and antelope. You get a lot more antelope as you go out in the panhandles. You kind of go over by Colorado, north of Colorado.
Probably pronghorn too, huh?
Yeah, that's what they are. Yep, you start to see them when you start to go out west, when you get closer to the Wyoming border.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You don't see elk too often in Colorado, in spite of what people probably think.
Well, I mean, I just know as a kid growing up in Estes Park, they were all over the place. Like when we go there in the summertime for vacation and stuff, they'd be walking around town in the morning. I don't know, maybe they've got the numbers thinned down a little bit, but they were thick when I was a kid.
Yeah, that's the one place that you do see them, and I think that people feed them in town is the thing.
Well, and they come into town to eat their yards, because if they can't find stuff out in the woods, it's like, hey, there's plants and grass right here, you know.
Right, but they know that they're going to swing by, so when there's like extra oats or whatever, they just kind of throw it in the grass too, you know.
Yeah,
which is fine, but that's bad.
They probably just hang out in the mountains all the time, right?
Well, yeah, because that's all surrounded by national parks and stuff. Yeah.
So I'm looking at the Nebraska hunting regulation, deer hunting regulations.
I was actually just I'm typing the same thing in right now.
I posted it in the side chat for you.
Hey, thank you. You just made it easier for me to look up stuff.
Yeah. So as far as I can see on here, you're good to go with your 300 blackout pistol.
Yeah. And see, now we do allow, when they say 22 caliber or larger, not 22 long rifle. Now the thing is, though, you could get potent 5.56 rounds that you can hunt deer with. I mean, there's nice hunting grade ammo. You could roll your own that would do the job. And there are people that do get their deer with 5.56, but almost everybody I know, they're either doing 243, 270, 308, 30-06, whatever, 7mm, this and that. I mean, I don't know anybody that I think you would see it. I wouldn't say it's unethical, but you're kind of drawing the line.
Is that because of you don't think there's enough power, or because of the distances you got to shoot?
Man, I you know what I really think it is I think guys just think it's too small of a round. That it's just too small for a big game animal. When you grew up using Daddy's 308 or Grandpa's 30-06, and it's just you want to. I mean, you want the maximum amount of power you can use that's going to do the least amount of damage to the meat, that's going to drop the animal as quickly as possible for the most ethical kill. That's kind of the philosophy behind it. So a lot of guys, 243's got such a tremendous amount of energy transfer, and 270s. But I mean, it's not really even the distance, because you're 243 and stuff. I mean, a lot of these you're not going to take them past, say, 300 or 400 yards.
Isn't a 300 blackout roughly equivalent to a 7.62-39?
30-30.
And that's equivalent to a 30-30, right? Which is a ubiquitous hunting round, which has been used since it was invented in 1894 for hunting.
Yeah, it just says I got to have, if I use a handgun, it's got to have at least 400 foot-pounds of energy at 50 yards. So, I mean, could I run suppressed subsonic?
Yes, you could.
And see, there you go.
Yes, you could, and not only that, but so and you do have, yours is 6 rounds, so you can't, your firearm can't be capable of holding more than 6 rounds. So that's literally 1 round in the chamber and a 5-round mag, or a mag that's been altered that it can max only hold 5 rounds, and so you can't have 30-round mags with you that
No. I would honestly probably have 2 or 3 Magpul 5-round mags, and that's it. I've got 2 that I use for testing when I bench the guns. I mean, that's not even a problem. And I'm trying to think here. No, I wouldn't. I'm pretty much limited to that, because the only other mags that they make are just the 30-round mags for it. and that's it for 300 blackout specifically. But the thing is that really would also help me. I mean, like I said, I want to get a can for because it's the same thread pitch as my Ruger Ranch bolt action. That's 762 by 39, so I can almost justify getting a 30 caliber can, with the wife. So
I definitely would, and not only that, but it's probably going to tighten up your groups a little bit and actually make the gun shoot a little bit better, especially the shorter the barrel.
I haven't had a chance to range test it. I function tested it, and just went to the range and put 20 rounds through to make sure it would run. But I have not actually had a chance to bench it yet. But I'm going to try to get out this week or this coming weekend and at least get it sighted in for 100 yards or just do what I can with my iron sights.
And then another thing is, I don't know if you have access to a chronograph or if you have a chronograph.
Yeah, I got to buy one. I really need to get one.
That's one thing you kind of do want with the 300 blackout, because a can actually add velocity onto a round, right? And what video games say, but a can actually add. So some cans and some setups, especially when you're already a little bit longer of a barrel, like a 10.5-inch barrel, and then you're adding a can, some commercial subsonic ammunition will start breaking the sound barrier. And so you want to kind of be mindful of that. So that's why it really kind of helps to have a chronograph and stuff, and just, so most people are rolling their own, but like if you're shooting a lot of commercial subsonic ammo, you want to make sure you're actually shooting subsonic, right? Yeah. And sometimes, most people can recognize the crack, but depending on what hearing protection you have on and stuff, you might not notice.
Yeah.
With the can, when you already are, adding a can, you might not notice that it's, your rounds are going supersonic. You might not care, but if you want to stay subsonic and as quiet as possible and shoot without hearing protection or something while hunting, like I would recommend a chronograph. Make sure that you're staying subsonic.
I was thinking about getting one of those po' boys. I don't know if you know anything about those.
The sandwich from New Orleans.
No, wasn't it a 22, like an inexpensive 22 suppressor?
No,
is that what they are?
It's
like $200 or
it's a 5.56 suppressor. But yeah, you're right.
Oh.
It's $200. So it'd be 200 plus 200 for the compliance stamp.
Yeah, I need to hurry up and get started if I want to get one. I don't know if I'd actually get my tax stamp in time for next fall's deer season. That could be interesting.
There are a lot of good routes you can go as far as basically building your own legally, right? And forming it and doing it all perfectly legally and getting it engraved and going quality, like K baffles and everything, right? Going quality proven parts. That basically the exact same parts and everything that other quality companies have been using in suppressors that have been around for 20 years, like proven designs, right? And you can basically copy these proven designs, but instead of paying like $800 for this proven design, you're only in it $200 doing it yourself, right? And then your stamp and everything, of course, right? But there are good routes to building your own. I've been thinking about doing a can lately, and I'm kind of going back and forth on building my own versus, buying one. And I think I'm going to build my own. I really do. I think that from the things I've seen out there from other people, like people who have a name behind them, who you can kind of, trust, who have done it, have said, hey, like you're basically getting this, the same thing. And then there's some kind of advantages to doing your own too versus buying one.
You could go super cheap and buy one of those oil can adapters, so it threads onto the end of
no.
I don't know if I want to be walking around hunting grounds on open day.
I'm saying you could put a Form 1 on one of those if you wanted to be super cheap, just on that little part.
Yeah,
just on the adapter. Yeah,
and then you can put whatever oil can you want on the end of it. You just specify the size of it or whatever, and then you're good to go. I'm not saying you're good to go, but
that might block my crosshairs though. Like, it could be an issue. And it might be kind of have Sandhills give me a spot, yeah.
And then all those things, all those guys have said basically you use that oil filter, it's disposable. So you shoot one time and you throw it away. So how many oil filters, how many times going out and shooting and all that, like you're buying these $10 oil filters and stuff and just basically trashing them.
Well,
So that's got to add up, you know. And eventually, it's just
But
like,
they
oh,
say
I could have had a
disposable.
real suppressor, right? Eventually, it's going to
When
come
it's
to that.
disposable, it doesn't mean like one shot. It means, when it's dirty, you throw it away or whatever instead of trying to clean it. But they use hydraulic filters. They're more tubular. They look like a old flashlight.
Yeah, they're called a Wicks. They're a tractor filter.
Yeah, so they're not going to get in the way of your optics and stuff. But I'm just saying to clarify, it's not like a car oil filter. I mean, they show pictures of them because that'll work too, I guess. But the ones that they show at gun shows and stuff are those hydraulic filters, whatever they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how well it would work with a 223 also, because I saw a video a while back where they were doing it with like a 1022 and they were just shooting 22 long rifle through it and it worked well for that, but with the higher pressure and that real thin metal that's that's on the outside of a oil filter, I would just think that you're potentially causing like a projectile issue, like a piece of metal might come flying back at your face.
From all my research I've done, it's come down to two things. I either buy a Surefire suppressor or I build my own that's a copy of a Surefire suppressor. So that's what my research has come down to after everything I've really looked into as far as longevity, really holding up, like just everything. And not only that, but actually adding accuracy to your gun, right? And stuff like that. And, just really working good and cleaning and just everything all together. I think Surefire has kind of like won me over. And, so that's basically what I've come down to. I'm either going to get a Surefire suppressor or I'm going to build one.
Now, could you go to a gun store and have them walk you through the process of doing a Form 1?
Yeah. South of Lincoln, Nebraska, they have a store called Silencer HQ, and I can go there and they will do everything. They'll take me through the process of the paperwork and getting it all set up and, getting this tax stamp materials faxed off or emailed off or whatever. They'll actually do that for you. Well, that you got to fill out the information, but they are there right next to you so you don't screw it up. That was one of the reasons why I like to. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say one reason why there's such some people don't understand, well, how come they charge so much money for this little tiny tube and stuff? Well, one reason why there is such a markup on them is because pretty much every gun store that I know of that sells suppressors, they pretty much will take you through and walk you through the whole process and everything and like hold your hand the whole way. Like that's their thing. Like I don't know any gun store that sells suppressors that pretty much doesn't, hold your hand the whole process.
Yeah.
It sucks that there's that level of regulation on something that is innocuous in effect. It doesn't make anything more dangerous. It's not like you're like suddenly silent because you have a suppressor on the end of your gun, Like, I don't know of any crimes that have been committed.
Well, if like big into like air guns and rimfires, right? So I associate a lot and talk a lot with guys over in Europe and stuff on these online interwebs, right? So I meet all sorts of cool peeps from over in Europe and I hear their stories. And it's really considered like rude and stuff in a lot of European countries to not have a suppressor on your gun and to be out hunting or shooting. And if you're out hunting and you don't have a suppressor on your gun, like you're called stuff like, oh, you're an idiot and you're bothering other hunters and you're like bad for the environment. Like those guys, like they're getting shamed for not having a suppressor on their gun because they can just like go into a store and buy it and like walk out.
Well,
Like it's like they like in such anti-gun countries that have such strict anti-gun laws and stuff like that, things like suppressors, they can walk into a store and buy it and walk out in a lot of those same countries.
I think Vandal was telling us, I don't know about it anymore, but Vandalisca Vlogs was saying it was like that. And I believe in New Zealand, you could just go in and buy one. Like he was showing pictures of them in a gun store.
Yeah, like there wasn't a background check or nothing. It would be like buying like any other thing at a store. You just like walked in, bought it, and walked out. It was just like, yeah.
Same thing up in Canada too, right? It's the same situation. Because wasn't Bob talking about that at one point in some of the chats, like back in the day?
So. Maybe in the past, but not anymore. Because he would have.
Oh, okay.
I want to think about how many like ranges have been like shut down because of like growth and stuff and more urban areas and stuff and just noise complaints and stuff, right? And over the years, because I know one particularly here that was shut down because of that. That's why I bring this up. Just mainly the only reason they were shut down was because of noise, because they built houses too close to the range that was there for 50 years, right? But like, how many ranges have been shut down for noise? When, man, like, if suppressors were much easier to get, how many people would be always shooting with the suppressor? Like, pretty much always, right? Like, how many of us honestly would pretty much like never not have a suppressor if we could just go in and buy one for $100 anywhere?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be like buying night sights. Like, you haven't bought your suppressor yet, you know?
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah, I do want that po' boy though, because that's about as cheap as I'm willing to go for a suppressor. And you know, if it lasts 10 years and breaks in 10 years, then I guess I got my $400 worth, you know. But yeah, I'm not quite willing to go the oil filter method. Not yet, anyway. We'll see if the zombies start attacking, you know, and you gotta start makeshifting something up, you know, put like a coat hanger auto sear and a oil can filter suppressor, and that's a zombie gun right there.
You're like popping hoods trying to find oil filters you can you can screw on. All right, hey guys, I'm gonna go ahead and drop out. Hope that's cool with y'all, and hey, have a good Saturday morning. I'll see you guys on Caliber Corner in 6 hours. Just kidding.
Who took your spot, Travis?
Nobody. I told David Bowling he should go ahead and take it. He's doing 8 o'clock in the evening East Coast time. I said, "Oh, you're gonna do 8 a.m." He's like, "Nah, man, I don't think so." So now it's open. It's up there for rent. It's G-Webs. It's what? It's like, is it $250 per month to rent that time slot if you want that 8 a.m.? That's prime time right there, man. 8 a.m. Central Time. Something like $200, $150. It might be on sale now. I don't know.
Well, anybody can host shows at any time, but yeah, you're definitely going to leave a cavity there on absence because
I know.
But I appreciate you taking the time to do it for so long. I mean, that was again. There's things that have contributed to the development of gun channels and what it's evolved into, and you're a big piece of that. So thank you.
Nah, man, I appreciate it. And like I said, you guys brought me into all this, so that's why I blame you guys. So no.
I'm looking forward. Thursday is getting crowded, but yeah, looking forward to it because that's going to push again. You know, if things get comfortable, then where does anything change or what adapt, right? So we've got a lot of stuff happening on Thursdays, and now we're going to see what that's like, and hopefully that'll encourage more people. I think what happens is people see the schedule and they think, oh, like Gary is Friday on, you know, at whatever time on Friday, and Travis is whatever time Saturday. So if I'm going to do a show, I got to fix some other time in the schedule, and that's not the case. I mean, we could have 17 shows at once. That's the way it is. So yeah, to see what Thursdays are going to be like, and you can have a whole different, I guess I'm assuming a whole different kind of show, because the night show is, you know, just different. People aren't waking up on Saturday; they're in their evenings on Thursday. So it should be cool to watch it.
Yeah. The first one went really well, and you know, like I said, part of it with the job that I do and what I do, it's better to do stuff towards the end of the week anyway. But with me being out potentially Friday, Saturday, Sunday because of the traveling I got to do and the family time and stuff, it's really hard for me to do it one of those other times, you know. But maybe in a year from now, once things are settled in, then I might go back to Saturday mornings once we're wherever we are and kind of go from there. So.
Right on. Thanks for jumping in.
Cool, man. Yeah, appreciate it, man. You guys all have a good night, okay?
Good weekend.
Yeah.
All right, take care, guys. Thanks a lot, man. And let's see. Dead Horse, I'll check out that round real quick, too. You put that on the internal chat?
Yep.
All right, thanks a lot, man. Okay, you guys all have a good night.
Later.
All right, later. Bye-bye.
So Pancakes was asking, what's the lifespan of a suppressor? It probably depends on a lot of stuff. So the baffles are going to wear out. Potentially, you've got it'll get full of debris at some point, so you can clean it. Some of them can, well, I guess, be cleaned easier than others, and there's different ways to do that. But I think the lifespan is mostly just the
caliber dependent and barrel length dependent.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, what you're pushing through it and how often, and of course that kind of thing.
A 9mm suppressor on a 16-inch barrel will last forever.
Well, I'm saying that basically the lifespan is the holes in the baffles and how long it takes for those holes to widen, right? Because that's what's going to allow pressure to start moving around inside the can, which is going to affect how well it dissipates. Because it's basically what we're trying to do with a can is take the massive amount of gases that are compressed and pushing that projectile out and slow down their rate of expansion.
Cool it.
Right?
Cool it.
Slow down their rate of expansion. You're saying it has to do with the heat of them?
Yes, we're trying to cool that gas as fast as possible.
Okay. So then what'll happen is the baffles are designed to create space, to make them go through internal hallways and rooms and corridors that make all that pressure and gas do stuff so that it doesn't just go out the barrel. So it has something else to do. So I guess what I'm getting at is as long as that stuff exists, those structures internally exist, then the suppressor will continue to work. So I guess either that stuff's going to disappear due to heat and corrosion, or it's going to disappear due to friction and erosion. And at some point it will wear out. So some cans are, you can replace those baffle set, whatever. Some of them are integral to the design of the thing. And I guess that's the best answer I can come up with, barring like accidents where something happens and a round goes crazy and kind of.
A lot of people will talk about the expansion of the gas. And that is true. You're trying to expand the gas, give it a place to go. You're trying to slow it down. That's all 100% true. A part that a lot of people skip over is the actual thermal properties. You're trying to release energy out of this gas, right? So one of the ways to get energy out of this gas is to transfer heat out of it and cool this gas down. And that's and that in itself makes it more quiet. It's funny how it works, but if you actually look like in like the theory, even going back to Maxim, you're trying to cool this gas down as fast as possible, and cooling is a big factor in those suppressors.
Well, cool gas takes up less volume than hot gas. PV equals nRT, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's a good point. But it all has to do with the same thing. We're trying to slow down these energy molecules that are sped up right now under influence of the chemical, whatever, burning, I guess.
Now, could you take one of those integral suppressors that doesn't come apart, and to clean it, pretty much just dunk it into an ultrasonic and pretty much get it clean on the inside?
Sometimes it's just that you've got, depending on the design, let's say everything, gravity. So everything falls out the top. What's going to go in the bottom? So how do you get stuff from falling out the top and then turn it over, and from falling out the top to going down that tiny little hole in the middle when it's not a funnel? So yeah, you can dislodge stuff. You can shake it all around, but unless there's like a little tiny vacuum hose or something to suck it out, all you've done is dislodge it and move it around. And then once your solvent or whatever evaporates, you've still
got all that crap in there.
Yeah, you filled space. I don't know if there's more to it. Or is there more to it than literally just the lack of space? Because carbon takes space, and as you build carbon, you're dwindling the actual size of the internals of your suppressor.
Well, then it comes down back to the thermal, because that carbon actually starts to act as an insulator, and you start holding that heat, and then your suppressor heats up fast. Your suppressor will glow red faster, right? Or like under you, like it'll heat up way faster, being dirty. And so there's a lot of people fail, because I've been doing to me, a suppressor is a big investment, right? So I've been doing a lot of research for literally like the last 6 months, like every little thing I can get my hands on. And I found that thermal properties come into play huge on suppressors. And Surefire is one of the few companies that really looks at that and takes that all into play. And a lot of Surefire suppressors are actually designed to be self-cleaning in such a way to where they only get carboned up so much, and they still have really good thermal properties and really good, sound dampening properties, stuff like that. But Surefire, man, I'm telling you.
So I don't really know anything about this, so I'm asking, if you do the form and get the stamp and have your suppressor, and you want to go shooting at the range, do you have to bring the stamp with you? And is it like they
Most
give
people
you?
just have a copy of it. They'll take a copy of it and they'll stick it in their grip or their buttstock or something like that. But then again, keep in mind that only an ATF agent can ask you to see that.
Yeah, so it's there's no law. Once you own a piece of property that's registered, which is what an NFA item is, then you've what's the word? You've complied with every onerous infringement. But because you own something that looks unique and the physical characteristics of looking at it are going to be questionable to some either range officers or law enforcement or even just bystanders who might, have weird ideas, then like Netor said, a lot of people will a lot of times everybody I know basically takes the stamp, which is a 9.5, 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and they'll make a photocopy, a two-sided photocopy, but also shrunk down. So now it's like the size of a postcard, and then they'll laminate that, or just do, you can kind of print it on Write in the Rain paper or something, and then roll that up like a scroll, stick it in, like you said, and like you said, your pistol grip, if you have like a tube or something for batteries on your stock. Sometimes I've seen little nylon thingies on the sling where it's just a little pouch that's only big enough for the piece of paper on the sling. So that way you've got it with you. If a law enforcement or somebody has issue, or a range officer who has no authority, neither one of them have any authority to do anything about it. But if what do they say? You argue in court, not on the side of the road. If you're about to be arrested because you have what's perceived to be an illegal short barrel rifle, having the tax stamp makes that situation less awkward, I would imagine. But the local law enforcement literally can't take it from you. Like, they don't have any authority. Well, I shouldn't say that. They don't have the authority to demand it of you. Once they have possession of it, I think it's questionable as to whether or not they have authority to possess it without your consent. They are law enforcement, so they probably can handle it without being illegal, but they really don't have authority to do anything about an NFA registered item.
Yeah, from my understanding, technically only an actual ATF agent can be like, let me see your papers.
Yeah, and do anything, have any consequence at least. Or I guess you'd have any issue. Like, it does say somewhere in the paperwork, right? In your stamp.
Realistically, I would avoid all that. And like anyone, like a range officer, like anyone said anything, I would just flash that out, bam, and be like, and put it back in, go back to shooting.
What they really need to
avoid a whole confrontation and all that, right? Like,
here's what we need to do.
I'm trying to educate them.
You've seen these CCW badges that people get when they get a CCW, so that they have a badge on their belt or whatever, they can walk around. We need to get NFA stamp badges. You've got this badge, so you could be like, oh, I'm good to go. You got this badge on your belt, you can point at it. Maybe one of them sashes, like a traffic cop or a crossing guard, like a sash that says like proud NFA member or proud NFA owner.
Like a hallway monitor sash?
Made out of like reflective yellow or something.
Nice.
Then that way they'd know right away, like, oh, that guy's okay. He's got a sash. He's got an NFA sash on.
I'm thinking of like Ralph Wiggum with
No, we could give the NFA monitor sash to the guy who asked to see the papers. Obviously, he's the guy because like we should be trying to educate him, right? Like that's what I would try and do. I wouldn't want a confrontation. I wouldn't want to be like the dick about it, but I would definitely want to educate the guy. So I would like flash my papers and say, look, suppressors are legal, or full auto, or whatever it is that I have a tax stamp for. Look, this is legal. Here's my papers, right? I'm legal. Now, listen, dude, technically only ATF can do this, right? You can't be bothering innocent people with legally owned items, asking them when you have no. I would try and educate the guy, right? I think I really would. And, because God, why would I want to just let him go off and keep bothering people and being uneducated, right? Like, so whether he was a police officer or a range officer, I would still want to. I don't want to be the dick. I don't want to be the guy like I'm a sovereign citizen. But I want to be the guy like, hey, dude, this is the law, right? Like, just because this looks like it's a no-no, like, they're legally owned by lots of people, right?
Yeah, get them woke. So no, that's we're talking like this is fucking 2000. Seriously, when I was a range volunteer, and I used to volunteer at the range out here, a range safety officer. I'd be out there when I was shooting a lot. I would volunteer, because when you volunteer, you get to shoot for free, right? So it makes sense. So if you shoot anything more than like 3 times a month, volunteer at your range, because you're just going to hang out there anyway at that point, and this way you get to shoot for nothing. So I was out there a lot, and back then even people were already using suppressors for hunting. Remember, we've had that since 2010, I think, and then no, 13. I don't remember, but anyway, we've had that for a long time, and then short barrel rifles. Like a lot of people out here have those. So those, it's one of the reasons I'm so stoked about braces and SBRs and the way the cans are so prolific now, because that is massive education to those FUDs. You know, they don't know, and acting like Dead Horse just recommended. I've seen that story played out just like Dead Horse said there. I can't even count. Literally, I can't even count, because I knew guys with cans, and we'd encounter people all the time who didn't understand, and we'd tell them, and from that point on they knew, and from that point on they were basically chill with everybody who owned cans, because they know that very few people, illegal jerks, are going out and buying gem techs. You know what I mean? If you're illegal and you're doing something crazy, it's going to be some muffler, it's going to be a bunch of hose clamps or something weird, right? It's not going to be a Surefire $1,200 can.
Exactly, and they're not going to be going to a range with it, right? Or you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And being comfortable with it, and being, you know, taking it out of their bag and putting it on their gun and leaving it sit there while they go check targets. Yeah, nobody's doing that stuff if they're unscrupulous. But anyway, we kid, but there's definitely been headway in that. And the braces are a whole nother, I mean, holy moly, the braces are awesome for that.
The braces, the new little tiny shotguns, those TAC 14s and shockwaves.
Exactly.
There's a lot of.
That's the NFA needs to exist. Nothing about the NFA needs to exist. There was nothing about bump stocks that were inherently dangerous. I mean, as much as it sucks to get that jet book on our thumb, on our neck, like you just said, the firearms and the braces and the suppressors for hunting, and the existence of the bump stocks and the triggers and all that nullify any justification for NFA. Nullify it.
A lot of people give that Franklin Arsenal Reformation, like, you know, short-barreled rifle type non-NFA short-barreled rifle, right? A lot of crap, but that's what that rifle is good for. Also, is that same thing. You know, does it still shoot bullets? Is it still deadly at like 25 or 50 yards? Yes. You know, like that thing was made. They literally made that. I don't even think they literally made that to like market to people. They really made that to kind of, I really think, to kind of wake people up. Like, hey, look, like we don't need the NFA, right? And I give them mad props for that. I really do. You know,
it's not a rifle. Just kidding. Just because it's not rifled barrel, it's.
Oh yeah, you know what I mean. Everyone knows what I mean.
Yeah,
like, no, I don't know what to call that thing. It's like, you know, I don't know exactly. Firearm, I guess, is the proper terminology, but you know, to me, it's a rifle, and it shows exactly why the NFA, doesn't need to exist.
I think it's technically a gun.
And in a way, bump stocks were a similar thing to that. Bump stocks were a similar thing to that. And, you know, a lot of these triggers, there's a lot of items that we have that could be confused with, you know, a lot of people who are not aware, like, oh, that's illegal. That, you know, double tap trigger or echo trigger. That guy's shooting full auto, right? Because, you know, it sounds like full auto, right? And then you educate people like, no, like this is a perfectly legally owned thing. Here's the paperwork, da-da-da. You know, and then did you know that, you know, because you mistook it for full auto, like, why can't we just have full auto? You know, like we don't need the NFA.
And more like, you came over here because you think this was full auto, and because you think anything with that rate of fire is illegal. So another potential way, or let me ask, is another potential way to have that interaction with somebody, especially a gun person, but maybe even not a gun person, is like, what about me shooting faster is somehow cause for concern? Like if I'm over here going bang, 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 or if I'm over here going bang, 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 what the hell does it matter to you different?
Exactly.
Like you only came over here because full auto is illegal. But if full auto wasn't illegal, would you come over here? Like, what do you care what I'm doing over here? And maybe have that, or maybe that's not the the confrontational or whatever. But is that another angle to be like, hey, you came over
Yeah, I
because
totally think it is.
like this isn't what you thought it was, but here I am having super fun. Look, I want to have some super fun with me. Watch this.
I think,
And like, oh, by the way, if this was done mechanically a different way, it would be illegal. But because it's done this way, it's not illegal because they wrote these laws in 1934. They had no foresight. They were only trying to, to infringe. So they weren't really trying to do anything really, because they knew about other things. I mean, they weren't idiots. They knew that you could bump fire. The guys that invented semi-autos didn't know how to bump fire. Are you kidding me? Like people that went to war with semi-autos, that's all. You can bump fire 1911s. You're telling me in 1911 and 1 month later, somebody didn't figure out how to bump fire that gun? Like, to suggest that these laws were written with anything other than to, cause difficulty in possessing firearms, like it's not. Anyways, that's too wordy. But to get that point across to them that, like, you came over here because it's illegal, but let's have some fun, and then now leave them with like, why should that?
I think the thing we should always leave them with, no matter what, is that I'm a law-abiding citizen. Most gun owners and guys are law-abiding citizens, and the NFA only hurts law-abiding citizens, right?
Well, citizens. There's criminals that possess guns, but gun owners. We were just talking about, can you even be a gun guy without being a gun owner, right? Like, gun owners are law-abiding. Saying most, I was just thinking as you said that, like, well, does that mean 70%? Because that would suck having 30% of gun owners be criminals, but it's not. It's like, whatever, 33,000 people killed somebody with a gun last year. And, all the other gun deaths are suicide or other things. Like, barely 3,000 people shot somebody with a gun in a country of 300,000. And assuming that each of those 3,000 incidents was a separate person, that one guy didn't shoot 4 people or something. But, it's 3,500 people or less in a country of 360 million people that are actually criminals. 3,000 people in this country are criminals. The rest of us are gun owners, and we're certainly not criminals. Or if we are, it's for like speeding or something, like not knowing how to comply with some freaking.
Well, like my point is that like they came over because they're like, oh, full auto's illegal. So what do they think, right? Like,
yeah, I guess
criminal, right? And then I think it's good to leave with them knowing that, like, hey, like it's not criminals who want to like, it's law-abiding guys who want to do this stuff and who are doing it, right? Like like when you hear the chances are if you hear full auto in your life, 99.99999% of the time, probably more than that, like it probably keeps going on for infinity with nines, that it's a law-abiding person shooting that full auto, not a criminal, right? Like it's like, it's a, so if someone has a suppressor, like, it's going to be a law-abiding person, like, like just like the chances are that it's a criminal doing that is so few and far between. It's not even like you can't even make a statistic for it. You really can't.
I have another thing to bring up, and I don't know if I've ever heard this addressed this way before, so maybe we can just solve something tonight real quick. But so we're talking like you're making a machine gun noise and somebody comes over. I mean, that's not like you're in your backyard and your neighbor comes over. Somebody's driving down the street and squeals to a halt and like runs out of their car and comes over. We're talking like at a range, let's say, and you're over here, right? And the old guy's over there shooting 1 or 2 rounds and looking over at you like, noisy kids or whatever. They don't even know what they're hitting or whatever. So that's probably where we're going to actually have a conversation with somebody who's like willing to walk over when we're shooting full auto, right? So I guess what I was getting at is that old guy who looks over, I've definitely seen more of those people than more gun owners are that way than not. Where if some kid's over there just shooting fast, everybody else on the range looks at him like, dumb kid, right? Like, Yahoo, you're not even, you're not hitting what you're aiming at, or you're not taking time to aim or whatever. But people usually look at the guy who's shooting fast like an idiot. And that's got to be the same with machine guns, I'm assuming. We just don't see that, there's not an opportunity to shoot machine guns at ranges, so you don't really see it. I'm just assuming. But anyway, what I'm getting at is we need some games or some like competition or something to do with a machine gun that can only be done with a machine gun that shows a valid recreational / competition / whatever skill building use for a gun that shoots a stream of lead, because there's got to be, I don't know, like maybe a tree or something, like a shooting tree, like some kind of a thing that could be devised that, you know, maybe could work with a semi, but you know, would show the show what a full auto can do, and like let a full auto be, you know, some fun thing.
What's that swinging thing that I forget what it's called, but you like hit the bottom plate and then it swings, and you hit it like twice and then it swings further.
Texas Star, where as you start to shoot it, the balance changes and it gets random.
No, not that thing. You're trying to make it do flips, basically. You're trying to make it do somersaults. But like have something like that, but make it.
Oh, where it's more like a paddle boat or something, and you're like shooting at one or the other, trying to get it to cause it to start spinning like a paddle boat or something.
Right, yeah. So have something like that, but like a slightly bigger target and maybe a lot heavier and a bigger pendulum, so that you'd have to hit it with like a burst of rounds to get it to swing, and then a burst of rounds to get it to swing, and then another burst to get it to go all the way over. You know? I'm sure that would be expensive to build. You'd have to have it weighted just right and have it built out of the right materials so it wouldn't wear out and it would weigh a freaking ton. But that would be an awesome little full auto target. I don't know. I got nothing.
What the hell happened? Got that air?
I don't know. I've been trying to think of like what kind of games would be fun with that, like, or to show that, and so I kind of think of like carnival games that have had like, you know, full auto like BB guns and stuff, right?
So I just wanted to go pee or whatever when I said that, but you were saying like have like that thing, like make it heavier or whatever. So I was thinking, yeah, if you had that, which I think would be, you know, challenge just in itself, just being able to put like a Thompson or something, it would definitely be a challenge to put a Mac on like just a 10-inch plate or an 8-inch plate or something. But let's say you have that thing where you can shoot it at the top or the bottom and you have to get it to start spinning. At least that would be the goal. And that could be something that's at a range at like 25, 30 yards or whatever is appropriate for lead, you know, for ricochets. But anyway, you could leave that kind of thing at a range, and it doesn't even, I think getting all rusty would actually add to it only being useful for machine guns. I mean, a regular gun could shoot it and make a noise and it would rock back and forth, but a machine gun could get it going. But once you've got it going or whatever, like once you figured it out, it would be kind of boring to have just, you know, a single spot in space that you shoot at. And you know that if you can put your stream of lead on that, it'll start it spinning. So then you add like a ball to the joint or a ball to the pivot. So now it can kind of flip or like go back and forth to the left or the right. So now it would, I don't know, with some sort of other, I don't know, with some other part of the design, you know, have it start to spin, but have it rock back and forth also. So now, you know, it'd be more like having to hit a moving thing and get a stream of lead on it. And that could, you know, maybe have it where you can flip it from one mode to the other. So if you want it to be like the easier or the more difficult, but I think that's a good idea. That would be something that only a full auto would be able to really spin.
I've always wanted to shoot like a remote control car with a gun. I think that would be a fun target too. Like something like how they have like at the dog races, I guess, would be a good idea. So you have like a rail that goes from one side of the thing to the other, and then it holds like a steel plate, and it moves the plate from one side of the range to the other at like a pretty quick rate. And then you have to put like multiple rounds on it as it goes. So you have to put a stream of rounds on it as it moves, and then you can count how many rounds hit it by like the paint that's on it or whatever. So you paint it red, and then you can see where it hit.
Yeah, if you did that with a paper target, you could just count the holes. That would be definitely a challenge.
I think it would have to be like those airplanes at Big Sandy.
That would be fun too.
Yeah, that you'd have to be like in some kind of cockpit thing to make it like you were in a bomber or something, right? Like they set up that one year, Big Sandy. You'd have to be in something like that. But then to afford to make it like affordable to shoot, you would just have to have like full auto 22s as like your guns on each side, right? Or like maybe like 4 22s or something.
Well, I'm thinking you need a ceramic projectile already. Some sort of a heavy material ceramic projectile coated in whatever it is, powder coat that you guys powder coat your lead in, and then inexpensive projectiles, because they don't. Who cares when you're shooting at targets? All you needed to do is
Right.
or is to to operate the mechanism. So that's what I would think. Full auto recreational will end up being, what do they call them? Gallery rounds, pretty much. Like there's
Like
something
3D printed polymer bullets or something that you can literally just print for like less than a penny a piece or something.
Oh, no, I'm thinking ceramic, something you make like bricks. Like I'm envisioning like, just a big grid, a big 24 by 24 or 25 by 25, grid where you take like mud or something, like a plaster of Paris impregnated with aluminum filings or something to give it some mass, and then you just squeegee a big dollop of that over it, like if you're filling chocolate molds or something, and then you just let that dry, and then you use those. Because again, I'm thinking just something that creates back pressure to operate the mechanisms. And if you're talking like little guns, yeah, I mean, pretty much anything would work. Like I'm saying gallery, like something that the projectile would be dangerous, but it wouldn't even hardly be, and it certainly wouldn't be, useful. It would just be to operate the things. Because I'm talking going out and shooting all afternoon. We're really just wasting powder. But doing something like that, you could shoot paper with that or something. If it was at all accurate, you could shoot paper or shoot at ceramic targets or something, or shoot steel.
Yeah, but a lot of places, man, a lot of people in a lot of states, they don't have places to do that. So I'm trying to think of like also like things that you could do like at an indoor range, right?
Yeah.
So they have those screen targets, those like video interactive.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like what's that?
Like you project video at a screen or something?
Yeah, right. And these like simulators, and I tried one once, and I thought it was pretty neat. Like I did, I actually liked it. And I got to shoot live, full power rounds, everything, like nothing changed, and so like one of those, like, and so potentially those you could shoot really cheap bullets, close range, right? Because they can simulate distance even though the screen's up close to you. So really, you could shoot like super cheap, like you said, ceramic or polymer, or just any like the cheapest materials you could come up with that somewhat flew straight for the first 10 yards, and that would operate the mechanism. And yeah, so those kind of like 3D screen simulators, you could do all sorts of stuff like that. Like even like I've seen almost like Star Wars type battle stuff, but where you're using your gun, right, to like shoot your laser gun, or you know what I mean? Like I've seen all sorts of cool stuff with those. So full auto with those, like those TV, I don't know what they're called. I know they have a name, but like those TV screen gun ranges. Yeah, I think that would be something really, that like everyone could do everywhere at a gun range.
Virtual reality is like headed somewhere too. Like I was at my nephew's house, and he's got this whole setup. We were playing some Jedi game, and like I went to lean on the table in front of me, and then realized that there was no table and almost fell down. Like it's pretty real, man. They just need to get it a little bit better, where maybe you hold some sort of like a mock-up gun that has all of the same buttons and features and functions, and like you can change magazines and everything just like an AR-15, exactly like an AR-15, but it works with the game. And then you can use that to train with your weapon, because it would be the exact same functions, and like maybe even have some sort of a recoil mechanism in it too, to like simulate the recoil. It wouldn't quite give you as much, but at least give you something so you have the feel for it. Like that would be pretty cool, and to help you with and you could train full auto like that too. I don't know, have you guys played any of those virtual reality games recently?
I've never played a virtual reality game, unless you're talking about with Dead Horse, talk about like being in a room. I've seen those. I guess I've shot in those.
You need to check out, like, I don't know where you would go, but there are places around that have, like, Dave and Buster's, I think, has something like that, where you can go there and, like, put on the virtual reality helmet and do the thing. They're getting pretty good. They're not, like, they're not real yet, but...
Yeah, I don't know about that. There's still so many... I still like the idea of using my actual gun for practice, right? And live rounds and stuff like that. And, man, like, I don't know, like, the one I played, I don't know if you guys remember this old arcade game, but it was called Lethal Enforcers, right? And it was like, I think it was like a bank robbery thing. You would like go in, you were like a police officer, and it was just like an arcade game, and you just had this like revolver gun. Well, I actually got to play Lethal Enforcers, like the game, but with a real gun and live ammo. And I thought that was, and growing up as a kid playing Lethal Enforcers, right? Like at the arcade machine, and then being an adult and then playing like the same game, but with a real gun and live ammo, I thought that was just the neatest damn thing I'd done in a long, long time. I really did. You know, and it was expensive. I think it was like $40 to go through that or something. You know, like it's not counting ammo or anything else, just like $40 just to go play like 2 rounds of that or something. It wasn't cheap, but I thought it was worth every penny. It was a really neat experience.
Super Nintendo, Konami. I used to think that girl with the pink shirt was hot.
Because you could have different simulations depending on what you're doing. Okay, you bring in a lever action. Okay, well, here's your cowboy simulations. You bring in a full auto. Well, here's like shooting everything from like, you know, like all like, you know, break kicking in doors or whatever, like, you know, all sorts of simulations for full auto. And yeah, I mean, those guys, they shoot target, you know, and they can simulate distance and draw like everything. And so I don't know, man. They have chronographs in those. They know exactly how fast the bullets are going, everything. You just input a little bit of information before you start, like, oh, I'm using this grain of bullet, you know, stuff like that. And then they know exactly how fast your bullets are going and everything, and they can simulate distance, so you can target shoot at 1,000 yards with your actual hand-loaded rounds, but you're at a range and really only shooting 10 yards. And they can simulate wind and like all sorts of cool stuff nowadays. So I think that interactive range thing, that's probably the future. Imagine how many ranges can open up being that much smaller if they only need like 10 yards of you know, backstop, but can simulate accurately 1,000-yard ranges.
Your crazy future has no guns in it. It's all just virtual reality guns. I don't like your crazy future.
No, my future has guns because you're using real guns.
Yeah, but you're using them at 50 yards or something inside.
Well, I'm just like thinking, like, you know, like maybe like what about home built ranges, right? That's a real thing. Guys have home built ranges in their basements and stuff, and I mean, come on, dude. Like, how many more people would shoot if they could simulate 1,000-yard range with their real gun and their real ammo? You know, and they only needed 10 yards to do it, or 5 yards, or whatever.
I think we need to think about, like, you ever seen one of these communities where there's like an airport and everybody just lands at the airport and taxis to their own garage/hangar, and then they live in their house on the other side of their hangar? And like sometimes there'll be a road that drives up to it, but most of the time people fly in and out of their place.
Yep.
So you have a place like that where there's a community and everybody lives on this one ridge, kind of like at Big Sandy. And then instead of having backyards, we all just have this big communal downrange area. So that way everybody can shoot at full distance, full range all the time, whatever. And then you just have common sense, like, what's the word? Polite rules. So like, oh, if it's after 9 p.m., use a suppressor.
But we have kids nowadays who haven't left the house in the last 8 years. You know what I mean? They haven't seen sunlight in like 8 years. Like,
yeah, now they got their backyard and they shoot into the range out there.
Well, we used to walk around with BB guns through the neighborhood, and no one would even look at us twice. Like a group of like 6 kids, each with our own BB gun, you know.
Oh yeah, be like, what are you doing? I don't know, play guns. All right, and then we would grab guns and then go somewhere, some creek or whatever,
Right.
shoot at each other all afternoon, winging shit at each other. Most of the time, shooting BB guns at each other and winging rocks and shit. And then we would all, like you say, walk through the neighborhoods or whatever, home, and then go back to doing homework or whatever.
No, I think you guys are wrong. So I think to get people to shoot more, make it their favorite video game. So they go play their Call of Duty game at the range with a real gun and live ammo, and it's like their favorite Call of Duty game, but now it's like live fire, and then boom, there you go. You know, their favorite first-person shooter. And I think, and then like they could go play like this level on this day, like every week they'd be going to the range if they had that. I'm just saying, dude, no shit. People would be going to the range every single weekend. Do you know how many more shooters and like kids would like probably, you know how many more people would probably own guns if like guns, if they brought guns, kind of like real guns and stuff into like video games like that? Like no joke.
In a way, going to the range kind of sucks because they have like a million, like at least one of the ranges that I go to, they're like 1 round per second is the most you can shoot. If you're at the rifle range, you must be seated with your rifle on a rest. If you are at the pistol range, you have to be, like, just let me do what I'm doing. And like, you're in your lane and this is your target and this is where you have to shoot between this and this. Hey, can I put a watermelon down there? No, you can't. Like, I get why they have all those rules, but like they take all the fun out of it, I like going up to the mountains where you can set up your own range and safely do whatever the hell you want, It's like going to the creek when you were a kid with your BB guns, not going to the range where there's some officer looking over your shoulder and some new guy behind you, like flagging people. And, I just don't like going to that range anyway. I'm sure there's ranges out there that are awesome, but there's also ranges that suck to go to.
Yeah, well, I hear that all the time. So gun shows that suck to go to, gun shops that suck to go to. So NRA sucks. So, I mean, one option is definitely to stop participation. Another option would be to go and, rebel or challenge. And then the other option, I guess, another option would be to join and participate. At least every range I've ever been familiar with is desperate for volunteers. And a lot of times the whatever set of rules or mindset, I mean, I'm not going to suggest that every time you go hang out and help that they'll change the rules, but sometimes the rules just are there from tradition and no one's ever said like, hey, people might want to shoot more than that and this isn't the olden days. But anyway, so there's options, but certainly ignoring them, there's no stimulus for them to change and no impulse for them to change, and they're going to, why wouldn't they stay the same way or even get worse?
Well, I'm kind of two minds about it. Like, one mind you just heard of being like kind of annoyed at like the fact that there's like range Nazis around you and stuff like that. But then the other part of it is if I'm going to be at a public range with a bunch of people around me who I don't know and I don't know their level of skill and I don't know if they know what they're doing, at least I know that they had, like a good safety talk before they stepped on the range, and at least they know the rules of the range. And if they don't, at least there's a guy there to tell them what they're doing wrong, which is nice. Yeah, exactly. And I think nobody's suggesting that we don't want that. I mean, there's a need for it. If you bring a kid or a new shooter or something, that you want that environment, that's great that environment's there. But like you said, it's awesome. I can't imagine. Well, I moved away because I lived in places where there wasn't an option. That was your option to go shooting. And I knew that wasn't the only option of a free person. So I moved to get to where you have the option of saying, okay, I want to go to the range for what it's good for and use it, and all this resources it's got. But then when I don't want to go to the range, I got all the opportunity to do whatever the hell you want out in the desert or the woods or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I do like going to the range to do, like, if I have a bunch of stuff to sight in, like, I just swapped, like, sights around on 2 different guns, because I bought a new one. Now I have 3 guns to sight in. Yeah, I'm going to a range where they have a bench rest set up, like, targets set up, where you know, it's just easier to do. Versus if you, like where I live, it's up in the mountains. It's hard to get like a flat level plane to shoot at least where I go shooting. It's kind of up in the hills. So you're often shooting like from above to below, or not really up usually. It's usually high to low, but not the same elevation. So like getting a good yardage for that, if you're trying to sight something in specifically for 100 yards or 200 or whatever, is a little bit harder. And plus you don't have the bench.
If you're looking for a good challenge, get a phone or a radio or something and chat with somebody on the other side of a big ass hill or mountain, and then shoot up over the hill and down onto the other side.
That would be fun. I don't know. I've shot like 600, 700 yards, something like that. Just at like a big old rock that we could see, you know? And I don't know. The first couple of shots that I shot, I thought that the bullet drop would be a lot more than it ended up being. So I was shooting like way high. Then you bring your aim down a little bit, 3 shots later, and you're right on target, you know? It wasn't hard. At least with the target the size that we were shooting at. We were trying to get like a 10-inch gong or anything. But it's a lot of fun. It really is going to the great outdoors and going shooting versus going to a concrete square somewhere.
Well, it's like driving or listening to music. I mean, it would suck if we could only do one thing. Well, now we got dead air again. So we've been going for a while, and got 20 people watching. Not that much conversation going on out there. Vandalista saying laser ranging helpful there. Hell yeah. I thought I used to know how to range, but I was wrong because a friend of mine's got a really nice laser rangefinder, and I'm amazed how off I am when I'm thinking I'm right. Especially when it's like you're ranging across the valley or whatever, like, you know, it goes down from where you're standing and comes back up on the other side, and you're zapping some rock or a deer or whatever on the other side. I'm way off on those a lot. But yeah, those laser things, you guys use those?
I don't have one. I have a buddy who has one, and I've used it before, but I don't have one.
Yeah, same here. I don't have that kind of money, but man, it's super nice. I really like it. I wish there was laser rangefinders and compasses in binoculars, like in the Empire, because that would be super cool.
Yeah, they got scopes nowadays, you know, with laser range finding and ballistic capabilities.
Well, I guess
that'll include. What's that?
I guess I should have said affordable. I'm assuming they exist.
Well, actually, no, they are getting more and more affordable. Like one of the cheapest that I would say works decent is that ATM, and it has ballistic ranging and ballistic, ballistic calculator, trajectories. You put in your specific round, everything like that. It'll show you exactly where to hold over in the scope, range your target, even like environmental factors, barometric pressure, windage, stuff like that. And they're like that $450, $500 now, and I've seen tons and tons of good reviews on those. That hey, for the money, like these things actually work. So they're definitely getting more and more affordable. Night vision, thermal, they even have thermal now. That's out for like the $500, $600 range, where you can even touch it for less than a couple thousand just a couple years ago. So, man, in 10 more years, imagine how cheap and the new stuff will have. So,
I got to play with FLIR for like an overnight. Because people had one and they were like, "Hey, you want to play with this overnight?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah!" So I drove around looking at stuff with it. It's super neat. Out here in the desert, I was driving around during the day, where you'd think everything's hot. It's daylight, you can see everything, and I'd be looking and like at a bunch of bushes, and you could see the little quails hanging around inside the bush, like the little red body heats inside of this bush. You look at it with your regular eyes, nothing. You can't tell they're there. Looking, I know they're there, and I'm looking at the bush. Nope, you don't see nothing. That was really neat. But yeah, I always think that they would get to. I seen something that was like for a phone, so they've already got it to where, they take the necessary pieces and just that's a little eye bundle, and then it uses something else for its gut, so that they've reduced the price dramatically. But I would think, yeah, they're going to get to where it's all electric. You don't need optical.
Well, and there's actually a lot of kits where you can basically build your own now with like an LCD screen, and you basically build it using like an existing scope as the optics, right? And so there's a lot of do-it-yourself kits, especially like over in Europe and stuff like that. It's really popular because they can't get American night vision over there, and so like there's a lot of do-it-yourself kits over there, and man, like I have definitely, if you're thinking like. It's not hard to do. I mean, it's really not. You can do your own night vision, your own thermal, pretty reasonable.
That's funny because I tried to do it myself and I broke a camera. I know exactly what you're talking about. Where you take it apart and then you take the lens off, and then between the lens and the whatever it is, the little digital part that catches light, there's a little filter, and you take the filter out and you put a different filter in. And you put it all back together, and in theory, it's not hard to do. But
no, I'm talking like a do-it-from-self scratch kit where you buy literally like everything. You just order everything off of Amazon and eBay. The actual parts, and you start with like an existing optic as basically your body, right? And you convert that over to thermal or night vision, and just by buying all the parts yourself. And because like one of the hard parts is like the actual housing, right, of all those parts. Well, a lot of guys have figured out how to take an existing scope, off-the-shelf parts where you don't have to do a lot of modification or anything. You don't have to necessarily have a machine shop. You can basically just stuff existing off-the-shelf parts into an existing optic, and now you have, a somewhat decent night vision setup for only, $300, but you're running like a Gen 2 night vision versus if you go buy like the cheapest night vision right now, it's going to be Gen 1, if even Gen 1. It might not even be Gen 1. It might say it is, but still not even be a real Gen 1. And, you're still paying $200 for that or something, right? Well, you can build a lot better quality from what I've seen for $200 versus what you can buy for $200. But again, you got to look up for the guys in Europe for that. All the European guys, those are the guys that have that figured out. And I wish we didn't have such sucky night vision import laws here. And I wish we could get European night vision systems, because there's some really, really nice European night vision systems that run like $400 or $600, and that are like Gen 3. I mean, like just state-of-the-art systems, and they're so cheap over there. We really get raked on night vision here in America. We do.
You got me looking at night
we
vision.
We have really crappy import laws.
I'd rather have a infrared, like a thermal scope, I think. If I was going to spend the money, I'd rather have that than a night vision. Although, which do you think is more useful?
Night vision. Thermal's neat and everything, but you can't see very much with it.
Or very far and clear, almost. Like the farther away it gets, the more the image is distorted. That's what it seems.
Yeah, you'll know that there's heat out there. You just don't know what it's doing. You just know that it's out there. So night vision it's really neat. I mean, that lets I've driven with night vision for a long time. Like, you can do a lot of stuff. You can shoot with night vision. It's useful because you can see things that other people can't. The heat, though, lets you see through smoke and through things, because the heat can come through things. So that part of it's neat. But heat can't see through windows, right? So you can't see cars are invisible to heat, right? They just see the reflection of the glass. Or am I mixing it up with night vision? No, I think it's heat, right? Heat can't see shit through glass. Like the vision can't penetrate, so it's only going to see what comes through the stuff. So, it's got its limitations. Night vision, you can see a vehicle clearly, but with thermal, you can tell that vehicle was still, was running 5 minutes ago compared to every other car in the parking lot. So there's things that each of them can do that the other just can't. So ideally, the best that I've ever seen is the combo units where there's both, and they'll just add extra color. It'll be green and black, and then there'll be also the heat colors when there's heat.
So I'm looking at Optics Planet right now, and there's a couple of different cheap-ish ones, like $600-700 ones. What do you think about those price level? Is that worth spending the $600, or would you be like, that's not worth it? Spend the $3,000 or whatever.
Go look for sure, but no, the old tech needs light. It needs to have a ton of light out there. If it's not something that Dead Horse is just talking about, all you're getting is really, really fancy contraptions or fixtures that make it look like new, but the insides are still old Gen 1 stuff.
Gen 1, if even Gen 1. A lot of the ones that claim they're Gen 1 are not Gen 1. They're not.
And all that,
real Gen 1.
Literally the amplifier tube. So you would
they're more like camcorder gen.
They need a massive floodlight of IR in order to bounce back and be see through that tube. They don't amplify good at all. They're just they're all super old tech. So what they'll do is, instead of just putting them in the old housings like they used to and leave them at $100, they'll just add hundreds of dollars and put them into the housings of the new stuff so that they look good or they look right. And I guess they can technically feel good because they still are night vision, but you're putting like a Model T Ford, like with wheels of today and like the seats of today with the engine and body of the old days. It's just the core of it is just weak and it doesn't do anything. So once you put it all on and everything, you look through it and it's like, unless you have a really, really, really bright IR light, and then they work fine. Then they can see great, but so can your eyes almost,
And the thing about, I would stay away from Gen 1 and period, for real, unless it's an actual like military grade one, because there's like a military grade Gen 1 and then there's like a commercial grade Gen 1. It's not a standard. What's that, G-Webs?
I'd say stay away from all of them. Save your money. It's just like buying a medium-sized gun, or a medium-cost gun. If you don't want to buy a cheap gun, great. But settling for a medium gun is settling. Save your money then. If you're willing to save your money to not buy the lowest price, then just save for the minimum price of like Gen 3 or better.
Or, yeah, I would say Gen 2 or better for sure. Like, just stay away from Gen 1, period. That's my advice.
How can you tell which is which? Because I'm looking at them, and some of them.
They'll trust me. If they're Gen 2 or Gen 3, they'll make sure to advertise that point. They'll make sure to stress it. Okay.
So if it doesn't say, then you pretty much assume that it's Gen 1.
Yep.
Okay.
And Gen 2 and Gen 3 also have a standard that they have to go by. A quality of the tube and everything has to be set to a certain standard in order to be rated like Gen 2 or Gen 3. So if they advertise that, then they meet a certain standard, okay? And so sometimes they try and play with wording to make it seem like it's a Gen 2. So, but really make sure it's like they actually say Gen 2. And that's the problem with Gen 1 is there is no like specific standard. And that's why Gen 1 varies so much. There's some good Gen 1s that actually work real good, and there's some like real shitty ones, man. And but Gen 2 or Gen 3, if it actually says Gen 2 or Gen 3, chances are you're getting something pretty decent that's going to work for you.
Yeah, I'm seeing some stuff that says Gen 2 for about $1,600-ish. That's a lot of money, man.
Yep. But that's worth the pennies. You're going to actually see details, right? With like the Gen 2 and Gen 3 stuff, especially the Gen 3 stuff like G-Webs is talking about, you'll actually see like individual leaves on trees, right? Versus Gen 2, you're going to see like, yeah, that's the tree and those are leaves, but you're probably not going to see every individual leaf at like 50 yards. Where the Gen 3 stuff, you can actually pick out like small details like that kind of stuff.
So Gen 1, it requires a light source. Like those tubes, the technology of that time required a light source. All it could do was passive infrared. The new stuff doesn't need an IR source because its tubes are so much more receptive or like have so much more definition that they no longer require. So that's the big step between Gen 1 and Gen 2, is that Gen 2 gets to where just putting them on, you can see in the dark. In a dark room, you can see in the dark. Like ambient light is, they can see ambient light. Gen 1s, unless it's a bright moonlit night, you're not going to see shit in Gen 1s in a dark room. You have to have a light source. They just weren't capable of grabbing ambient light or whatever it's called and turning it into stuff. You had to have something in there to kind of get it going. And even when you did, the best Gen 1s are like looking through glasses that are all fogged up or like have Vaseline on them or something. Like it's never going to get clear. Gen 2 are a step above Gen 1 because they can see in the dark, but they're not as clear as Gen 3. Gen 3's differentiation is that it can see in the dark and it can see better than Gen 2's, but it's clear. So a Gen 2 with illumination, with an IR flashlight or an IR strobe or something, that an IR light stick, and a Gen 2 is going to be almost Gen 3 quality, where Gen 2, when it doesn't have a light source, is significantly better than Gen 1. Gen 3 with no light source is like the best Gen 2 like can ever hope to be. Gen 3 with a light source, you might as well be just putting on a pair of green sunglasses in a bright room or out in the bright sun. It simply looks like daylight, except that everything's green. Gen 3 will blow your mind. I haven't even looked to Gen 4, I don't think. So Gen 4, I don't even know if that's a thing as much as like having 4 tubes of Gen 3, which I can't even imagine. That's your peripherals can see. But Gen 3 is basically like just being out on a sunny day, everything's green. Gen 2 is like that when there's illumination, but it's just like having a dark, like a moonlit night, but green. And then Gen 1, if you're in a dark room, you're just in a dark room. Like it can't perform by itself. I think that's the way I think of them.
So I'm looking at the Armsight Co-X Night Vision Medium Range Clip-On System Gen 3. $5,495 for a scope.
Yeah. 3 is going to start at $5,000 and go up to way more than that. 2's tubes is $10,000 and up. So Gen 2 is like the 1,000-ish and up to 3 plus. And if you put Gen 2 in a fancy apparatus to stick it on your helmet, you know, you're talking low-end Gen 3 numbers. Gen 1, $100, $160, like $100 for a used one. And those are just old Russian tubes. Basically, we're buying Russian tubes, and they stick them into little handheld thingies or in the really expensive setups that Gen 2 and 3 normally live in. But and I'm not bitching. Gen 1s for $100 are awesome. I think we're bitching when you buy Gen 1s for $600. Then it's like, nah, waste your time, save your money, save up for that Gen 2 or Gen 3, and then you know, enjoy owning the night. But Gen 1 is certainly worth having. I have 2 or 3 that I've acquired over the years, just because, number one, it doesn't cost nothing to get an IR flashlight. Get a IR flashlight head. I got an IR head for you know, the standard Surefire 1-inch tube, and put that on with the 2 CR123 batteries. And now it's as bright as Gen 2 or 3. I mean, you can see great when there's an illuminator. It's just really stupid. It's really fuzzy. Like you couldn't tell one person from another person. You could tell there's a person standing there, but unless you remember what clothes they're wearing or something, like you're not going to tell their face. Gen 2 and 3, you can see their face just like you're standing in the room with them. Well, Gen 3 for sure. Gen 2 with illumination, it's just like you're standing in the room with them.
My advice is, if you're spending that kind of money, if you're really looking at spending some money, I would be less worried about necessarily like, oh, what brand I'm going to go with. I'd be more worried about warranty,
Right.
customer service record of that company, and then where am I buying it from that offers an extended warranty at a small cost after the manufacturer warranty runs out. So, because a lot of these systems, you know, you're talking $5,000-8,000, and you look into it and you find out that they only have a 1-year or 3-year warranty or something. And if you can possibly purchase for $80 for a $5,000 optic an extended 2-year or 3-year warranty from Amazon after the manufacturer warranty runs out, that's a good, I'm looking at warranty and long-term status on an investment like that. So I'm all about like the warranty and the customer service record of that company, and where I'm buying it from, who's offering extended warranty options. That's what I'm looking for, really, more than like what actual probably like brand or names on it.
Yeah, and you're almost
when you get up into that price range, they're all pretty much going to be, you read some reviews, they're all pretty much going to be about the same level playing field of that.
But you're also almost talking theoretical, because you've got like ITAR, like you were talking about before, and then, good luck. You can't just go buy anything that exists. Like, there's certain things that are for sale, and then certain things are just, that they exist, but that doesn't mean that anybody's selling them to anybody.
Like yachts.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Some of the military stuff, like you can own it, but you got to know you're owning stolen property. And I don't know how many people are down with owning stolen military property, especially when it costs like $20,000 or whatever, just because somebody had the lack of scruples to steal it from Uncle Sam and throw it into the free market. And it's out there. I don't personally want to own a set of nods that was stolen. Now, if I don't know, there must be other ways to procure them, or how to have gotten them.
Well,
but
private contractors get them and stuff. So I'm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then like, legitimate somebody said, yeah, you keep this, or like, oh, that one was lost in an inventory and now it's yours, so no problem. And then that guy sells it. I'm not suggesting everyone's stolen, but I'm just saying I wouldn't necessarily want to stolen it. But so I'm just saying some of that stuff, yeah, we're never going to see it. I've heard of some stuff from people that I just know from, having jobs, and we'll be sitting around bullshitting, and they'll tell us about stuff they use. Like, maybe we'll see it in a million years or something when they are on to the next better thing. But that's why I say I don't want to scoff at Gen 1s. That's all I own, but I still own them. I mean, it is nice to be able to think it was a pitch black night and you wanted to see what was making that noise out there. You could. Without turning on lights. But I like that idea. Digital. Pants was saying digital is comparable to Gen 2, won't get ruined by being exposed to daylight, and it's cheaper, just eats a lot of power. But we were talking about it before. So thermocouples create electricity when one side is hot and the other side is cold, right? Either way. So you get a couple cold, it'll create energy, and if you get it hot, it'll create energy, right? So
the real term for them would be like a thermal pile generator.
So if you put a bunch of these along a barrel, would they not dissipate heat and create energy, and couldn't those power a battery, which would then power your thermal or your digital infrared?
I don't think you'd be able to get enough heat out of the barrel to generate enough electricity. I think
what about like an M2 or a Gatling gun setup or something big?
I'm thinking about just like how hot consistently just a flame is, like, right? Just a little tiny flame. And that only creates millivolts of electricity.
Then what about the piezoelectric creator, so that the chamber pressure creates a burst of electricity?
Now that would be more of that would actually create like in the small volt range, right? Mm-hmm. So that would be able to power with how good our electronics are nowadays. Like how we have some really low powered electronics. Yeah.
So your night vision starts to go low or whatever, and then also you have a bunch of those. Well, you pull electricity from the pressure of the chamber, but you also pull electricity from the heat of the suppressor, and you pull electricity to help cool that gas. So using either chemical or metallurgical, catalysts, you pull as much heat as you can to create it into energy. So that way, if you're like out there and your night vision is like starting to dissipate or whatever, you just hold your gun up into the air and go, pull a silenced rounds up into the air, and then your night vision's all charged up.
Or you could make your bolt carrier group out of a big magnet and then have like a coil of wire going around the outside of the gun, like built into it. And then every time the bolt carrier went back and forth, it would travel in between the coil of wire and make a little bit of electricity.
Yeah, there's like 3 different ways we're going to pull electric off of the energy of that chemical energy.
Well, you're forgetting one thing. So you use the piston of the gun to spin up a gyroscope, okay? And then the gyroscope keeps you stable and on target, okay? And then you also use that gyroscope. It's called a gyroscopic generator. So then that gyroscope spinning is generating electricity, right? Because it's basically spinning around a bunch of copper wire and magnet, right? And so it's spinning like an electric motor in reverse, basically, right? And it's generating electricity. Then there you go. So then that's charging your battery. So now you have your gun stabilized and on target, the gyroscope, and then so now you can stand up shooting but have accuracy like you would from a bench. And
so are there gyroscopes? Are there gyroscopes that people use as like a kind of infinite sandbag or like an infinite rest, where you would like spin up a gyroscope and then set your rifle on it?
As far as I know, the only guns I'm aware of that have gyroscopes in them are really, really big guns in airplanes and
Well,
stuff
yeah,
like that.
stuff on boats or whatever to
Yeah.
keep the actual gun consistent while the boat's going all over the place.
Yeah, so I don't know about any
But
small.
would that work if you spun up a gyroscope with a battery? What doesn't it just stay in space, like stay right there?
Yeah.
So then,
So whether you tilt the gun to the left or to the right, but not only that, but the gyroscope has another unique property: is it takes vibrations out of the system, and it helps immune small movements, right? And
so why don't they do that? Why don't they have like a vert grip that's a gyroscope, so that as soon as you're ready to shoot, you just spin it up, and then your that pivot axis is not moving; it's just sitting there, and then you can shoot.
Well, you would need a pretty big gyroscope in relation to the thing that you're trying to stabilize. Like, think about like a motorcycle. The 2 tires act like gyroscopes because they're spinning, which stabilizes the bike as it goes down the road.
Mm-hmm.
But in comparison to the bike, they're a pretty big size, right?
Yeah.
If you had just like some little spinning thing inside of the handle or the pistol grip of a AR or something, like it might have some effect, but I don't think that it would have enough to. I mean, maybe if you could spin it fast enough somehow.
There must be a reason, because they haven't come up with it already. If somebody comes up with a gyroscopic vert grip stabilizer, then we get cut of it. So.
Yeah. Also, thermal conductive pads on your barrel to create electricity for your thermal red dot sight or whatever.
Oh yeah, we got all 3 of those covered. Pressure, temperature, and movement that generate power during the firing of a firearm. We don't know that.
Plus the magnetic bolt carrier group. Can't forget that one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The movement. So we got all that. So I don't know. At some point we got to spin it down. So why don't we turn off that gyroscope and let everything calm back down? And thank everybody for joining us tonight. We still got 17 people watching. And a healthy conversation going on out there, talking in the text chat out there. Bunch of people in Tulsa this weekend. Going to be reviewing the largest gun show in the world for maybe the 3rd or 4th time as a group. We had a bunch of fun hanging out with everybody at the hotel earlier tonight live. There's been some changes on the platform that hates guns and hates our laws. But they've also hated small channels and decided that they don't have the ability to go live from their phones if they don't have over 1,000 subscribers on that platform. So we'll probably go live tomorrow during the 2A workshop and go live and see what all's happening at the show. Travis moved his Caliber Corner, so that's on Thursdays now. So Rick's show is the Saturday show over on Gun Channels from now on. Rick's Life as I See It starts at 3 p.m. Eastern. If you're interested in hosting a show, there's Windows opportunity all over the schedule. So feel free to let us know over on Gun Channels if you're hosting a regular live show. Be happy to add your project to the conversation. You guys have anything else to talk about before we head out?
No, I just found someone in the chat who's not very far away from me.
Right on.
That's cool, man.
Right
Yeah.
well, it used to be by the Centennial Gun Club, which will be our gun shop of the day. We talked about it earlier in the show. One of the reasons we do the show on a daily basis, so we can feature a gun shop every day. If we ignore gun shops, they will go away. We see when either national level or even sometimes state level anti-gun pushes will scare the big box stores or the online stores. They will, in a heartbeat, remove firearms from their inventories. They'll stop selling them completely, as we saw with Dick's, even in the light of negative stock holder profits, which is scary as capitalists. But as people here, we see that that's a thing. So anyway, so we try to talk about a gun shop every day. Centennial Gun Shop. I visited that with Chris when I went up to Denver on the way up to the Gun Rights Policy Conference last year. And let's see, I got to Denver, I think around late afternoon already. It was pretty late. And I went to a shop in, I forgot the name of the town, but they would not let me film or take pictures or nothing. It was a decent little shop, big rectangle, square area. And half of it was a range. So anyway, I was trying to get with Chris, and by the time I got with Chris, he said, "Oh, come back over to this one." So I went over and visited that Centennial Gun Club. Have you been to that one? We talked about that.
Yeah, I have been there before, actually. It's right down the street from me.
Oh yeah, you guys are right then. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing I like about it is the thing that sucks, I guess, is that you got to pay money because it's a gun club to be there. You know, you can pay like a pretty big range fee for like a one-time fee and use the range. Or if you need like a firearm transfer, they'll do a firearm transfer for like $50 or something like that. But if you bite the bullet and pay the fee, you get to use the range. I think it's either basically free or free. And then if you buy a gun online and have it transferred to them, it's like a $10 fee for the transfer. So you just pay what they have to pay. So there's little perks to it. Plus like ammunition deals and stuff like that they give you, and like any gun that you want to buy that they're selling, they'll let you shoot at the range, like, you know, just buy the ammo and shoot it. It's pretty cool. I like that place. It's nice too. It's real nice on the inside, like brand new, smells new, like a new car. What did you think when you went there, G?
I didn't shoot there, so I just seen it. But if these pictures will pop up, you can see what he's talking about. It's certainly new and nice. And I was gonna say, I've been to a couple of shops, and there's the little puppy, there's the van, there's the gun shop right there. So I've been to a couple of shops around the country, and there are definitely, I'd call this at the higher level, almost snooty level. I didn't hang out there, so I don't know if they're technically snooty. It certainly looks like it could be snooty.
A little snooty.
So nice. But I encourage people to value these things. The fact that we've got nice ones is an alternative, or it's a other end of the spectrum from the ones we were talking about, I guess, earlier. You know, where they might be outdoor and might be been there since the 60s or 40s or 50s or something. You know, and they're ingrained in their ways and they're good for what they're good for. But you know, these places are good for what they're good for. So let's say you want to go on a date or something, like, yeah, you want a range like this to be able to take a date to, right? Or if you want to go impress your date's parents or something, you want to take this chick and you're thinking you want to get married to her or something, like you want to take her dad out somewhere. Don't you want someplace like this to exist? If you're going to go to a business meeting or something and you're trying to, make a deal or impress a client or something, or whatever, don't you want someplace like this to be an option for us? So I'm glad that these places exist, and I can't afford to go to them every day. I swear, even if I could afford to go to it every day, I probably wouldn't. It's too fancy for me, but I do think they're neat. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that even though it's not my thing, I'm glad that they're out there. And then here's another thing. Somebody's got to dig putting on a tie and going shooting or whatever, right? Somebody's got to like the idea of having shoes that cost more than my fucking van to go shooting, right? And I want those people to go shooting. I don't want those people to think that shooting's just for, poor people or something. Like, I want rich people to go shooting and want NFA items, right? And want everybody to have that shit. So I'm just throwing that out there. Like, I think it's cool that there's fancy shops out there.
Well, the area that shop's in is not too far away from neighborhoods, towns, areas where a lot of rich people do live. And in like if you're a gun person and you have the kind of money to live in those areas and drive the cars and stuff that they drive and all that, then you can afford the piddly $400 or whatever it is annual fee for the Centennial Gun Club to go sit down and enjoy snacks and air conditioned, and like there's a place for it, there's a market for it, and that's the reason why that shop is there.
All right, so that's our shop of the day, and now we know 4 different people that have been there. Three people, I guess, that are hanging out that have shot there, and we'll have to talk about more Denver shops. There's a Denver gun show I really, really, really want to go to, and I didn't get to go to Tulsa, so I'll keep trying to get to that one even more, and looking forward to checking out more of the shops. Like I say, I stopped at the one, they wouldn't let me take pictures. Stopped at this one, they let me take pictures. Obviously, I got pictures we just looked at, and then stopped at a third one. I don't remember the name of, but they had just closed. Like, we literally pulled up as they were closing, and didn't stay open for us. So I've only really seen one gun shop that's worth shit in Denver so far, and there's got to be more than that, right?
Oh, Machine Gun Tours, man, that's the one. That's the cool one up north that I've been to anyway. Like, they've got a Hummer that they put like a 50 cal machine gun that they have somehow. I don't know if they have like a dealer's or like a transferable one or whatever, but they've got a big tract of land up in the mountains not far from where their shop is, like 30-40 minute drive. So you pay however much it is, and you and a couple of buddies can hop in the Humvee with like one of their dudes, and they'll drive you up to the land and take you to a spot where you can let loose with that. And there's other guns that you can rent too. Like, that's a pretty cool shop, but it's like a hole in the wall. It's like polar opposite of the shop that you were just looking at. Like, it's nice and new. This one's like old and dingy and not well lit, but I kind of like that kind of shop myself.
I hear that. All right. Well, with that, we looked at a shop. We talked about Tulsa. We talked about what's happening this weekend, and we will see everybody on Monday.